Chapter 1. Sara. One cold winter day, the yellow fog in London was so thick that the street lights were on, and the shop windows were bright like at night. A little girl sat in a cab with her father, moving slowly through the big streets. She sat with her feet tucked under her and leaned against her father. She looked out the window at the people passing by. Her big eyes looked serious and thoughtful. She was so small that people did not expect her to look so serious. Even a 12-year-old would not usually look like that, but Sara Crewe was only 7. She was always thinking about things. She could not remember a time when she was not thinking about grown-ups and the world around her. She felt like she had been alive for a very long time. Right now, she was thinking about her trip from Bombay with her father, Captain Crewe. She thought about the big ship, the quiet lascars working on it, the children playing on the hot deck, and the young officers' wives who laughed at her words. But mostly, she was thinking about how strange it was to be in hot India one moment, then in the middle of the ocean, and now in a cold, dark city. It was confusing for her, so she moved closer to her father. "Papa," she said in a small voice, almost whispering. "What is it, my dear?" Captain Crewe asked, holding her close. "What is Sara thinking about?" "Is this the place?" she whispered, moving closer. "Is it, Papa?" "Yes, little Sara, this is it. We are here at last." And even though she was only 7, she knew that he was sad when he said this. For a long time, he had been preparing her for the place, as she called it. Her mother had died when she was born, so she never knew her. Her father was young, handsome, and rich. He was the only family she had. They had always played together, and he loved her very much. She knew he was rich because she had heard people say it when they thought she wasn't listening. They also said she would be rich when she grew up. But she did not really understand what being rich meant. She had always lived in a beautiful house, with many servants who called her Missy Sahib and gave her whatever she wanted. She had toys, pets, and a nanny who loved her. She learned that rich people had these things, but she did not think much about it. The only thing that made her sad was the place she had to go. The weather in India was bad for children, so they were sent to England for school. She had seen other children go, and she knew she would have to go, too. Sometimes, she was excited about the trip, but she did not like the idea of leaving her father. "Couldn't you come with me, Papa?" she had asked when she was 5. "Couldn't you go to school too? I would help you with your lessons." "But you won't stay there for very long, little Sara," he always told her. "You will live in a nice house with many little girls, and you will play together. I will send you lots of books. You will grow up quickly, and soon you will come back and take care of Papa." She liked that idea. She wanted to keep house for her father, ride horses with him, and sit at his dinner table when he had guests. She wanted to talk to him and read his books. If she had to go to England to do that, she would try to be strong. She didn't care much for other girls, but she loved books. She always made up stories and told them to herself. Sometimes she told them to her father, and he liked them too. "Well, Papa," she said softly, "if we are here, I suppose we must accept it." He laughed at her serious way of talking and kissed her. But he was not really happy. He had spent so much time with her, and now he knew he would feel lonely when he returned to India. He held her close as the cab arrived at the large, quiet square where her new home was. The house was big and dull, just like all the others in the row. But on the front door was a brass plate that said, "Miss Minchin, Select School for Young Ladies." "Here we are, Sara," Captain Crewe said, trying to sound cheerful. He lifted her out of the cab, and they went up the steps and rang the bell. Sara later thought that the house was just like Miss Minchin. It was neat and full of fine things, but everything in it was ugly. Even the armchairs felt hard. The hall was shiny and cold, and even the red cheeks of the moon on the big clock looked stiff and polished. The drawing room had a carpet with square patterns, square chairs, and a heavy marble clock on the fireplace. Sara sat on one of the stiff chairs and looked around quickly. "I don't like it, Papa," she said. "But I suppose even brave soldiers don't really like going to battle." Captain Crewe laughed. He loved her funny way of speaking. "Oh, little Sara," he said, "what will I do when I have no one to say such serious things to me?" "But why do serious things make you laugh?" Sara asked. "Because you are funny when you say them," he answered. Then he suddenly pulled her close and kissed her hard. He stopped laughing and looked as if he might cry. Just then, Miss Minchin came in. She was tall, strict-looking, and not very pretty. She had large, cold eyes and a big smile that did not look real. When she saw Sara and Captain Crewe, she smiled even more. She had heard good things about the young soldier. She knew he was rich and wanted to spend a lot of money on his daughter. "It is an honor to take care of such a lovely and smart child, Captain Crewe," she said, taking Sara's hand. "Lady Meredith told me that she is very clever. A clever child is a great treasure at my school." Sara stood quietly and looked at Miss Minchin's face. She was thinking something strange, as she often did. "Why does she say I am beautiful?" she thought. "I am not beautiful. Isabel Grange is beautiful. She has dimples, rosy cheeks, and golden hair. I have short black hair and green eyes. I am thin and pale. I think I am quite ugly." She is starting by telling a lie. She was wrong to think she was ugly. She did not look like Isabel Grange, but she had her own special charm. She was slim and graceful. Her black hair curled slightly at the ends. Her grey-green eyes were large and lovely, with long lashes. Many people thought she was pretty, but Sara did not believe this. She watched as her father and Miss Minchin talked. She had come to this school because Lady Meredith's daughters had studied there. Captain Crewe trusted Lady Meredith. Sara was to be a special student, called a parlour boarder, and would have more privileges than others. She would have her own room and sitting room. She would have a pony, a carriage, and a maid to replace her nanny from India. "I am not worried about her education," Captain Crewe said, laughing. "The problem will be stopping her from learning too much. She is always reading. She eats books like a hungry little wolf. She wants big books, books in French and German, history, poetry, everything. Please make her stop reading sometimes and go outside. Make her ride her pony or buy a doll." "Papa," Sara said, "if I bought a new doll every few days, I would have too many. Dolls should be special friends. Emily will be my special friend." Captain Crewe smiled at Miss Minchin. "Who is Emily?" she asked. Sara's eyes became soft. "She is a doll I don't have yet," she said. "Papa and I are going to find her. She will be my friend when he is gone. I will talk to her about him." Miss Minchin's smile grew wider. "What a special little girl," she said. "Yes," Captain Crewe said, hugging Sara. "Take good care of her for me, Miss Minchin." Chapter 2. A French Lesson. When Sara came into the classroom the next morning, everyone looked at her with big, curious eyes. By that time, all the students, from Lavinia Herbert, who was almost 13 and felt very grown up, to Lottie Leff, who was only 4 and the youngest in the school, had heard a lot about her. They knew she was Miss Minchin's special student and that she made the school look important. Some of them had even seen her French maid, Mariette, who had arrived the night before. Lavinia had walked past Sara's room when the door was open and saw Mariette unpacking a box that had arrived late. It was full of skirts with lace on them, so much lace. She whispered to her friend Jessie while pretending to read her geography book. I saw her shaking them out. I heard Miss Minchin say to Miss Amelia that her clothes were too fancy for a child. My mother says children should dress simply. She is wearing one of those skirts now. I saw it when she sat down. She has silk stockings on, whispered Jessie, also pretending to study. And her feet are so small. I have never seen such small feet. Oh, Lavinia said with jealousy, that's because her shoes are made that way. My mother says even big feet can look small if the shoemaker is clever. I don't think she's pretty at all. Her eyes are such a strange color. She's not pretty like other pretty girls, Jessie said, looking at Sara again. But you want to keep looking at her. She has very long eyelashes, and her eyes are almost green. Sara was sitting quietly in her chair, waiting for instructions. She had been given a seat near Miss Minchin's desk. She was not nervous about all the eyes watching her. She just looked back at the other girls with interest. She wondered what they were thinking. Did they like Miss Minchin? Did they enjoy their lessons? Did any of them have a father like hers? That morning, she had talked to Emily, her doll, about her father. He is on the sea now, Emily, she had said. We must be best friends and tell each other everything. Emily, look at me. You have the nicest eyes I have ever seen, but I wish you could talk. Sara had a big imagination. One of her ideas was that dolls might be alive, but kept it a secret. After Mariette had dressed her in her dark blue school dress and tied a ribbon in her hair, Sara gave Emily a book. You can read this while I am downstairs, she said. Then she noticed Mariette watching her with surprise. I think dolls can do things, but they won't let us know, she explained seriously. Maybe Emily can read, talk, and walk, but only when no one is watching. If people knew, they would make dolls work. So, maybe all dolls have promised to keep it a secret. If you stay in the room, Emily will just sit still. But if you leave, she will read or look out the window. And if she hears us coming back, she will quickly jump into her chair and pretend she was there all the time. How funny she is, Mariette thought. Later, she told the head housemaid about it. But she had already started to like this strange little girl with her smart face and perfect manners. Sara was always polite, saying if you please, Mariette, and thank you, Mariette, in such a kind way. She acts like a little princess, Mariette told the housemaid. She was very happy with her new little mistress and liked her job. After Sara had sat in her seat for a few minutes, being watched by the other girls, Miss Minchin tapped her desk. Young ladies, she said, this is your new classmate. All the girls stood up, and Sara also stood. I expect you to be friendly to Miss Crewe. She has come a long way, from India. When lessons are finished, you must introduce yourselves to her. The girls bowed, and Sara made a small curtsy. Then they sat down and kept looking at her. Sara, Miss Minchin said, come here. She had taken a book from the desk and was looking through it. Sara walked up politely. Your father hired a French maid for you, so I believe he wants you to study French, Miss Minchin said. Sara felt a little nervous. I think he hired her because he thought I would like her, Miss Minchin, she answered. I am afraid, Miss Minchin said with a stiff smile, that you are a spoiled little girl who thinks everything is done for her happiness. Your father clearly wants you to learn French. Sara wanted to explain, but she was shy. Miss Minchin seemed so sure that she knew nothing about French that it felt rude to correct her. The truth was, Sara had spoken French since she was a baby. Her mother had been French, and her father loved the language. She had always heard it at home. I never really studied French, but she started, trying to explain. Miss Minchin, however, did not want to talk about it. She did not speak French well and did not want the students to know. "That is enough," she said quickly. "If you haven't studied it, you must start now. The French teacher, Monsieur Dufarge, will be here soon. Take this book and look at it until he arrives." Sara's face felt hot. She sat down and opened the book. She looked at the first page with a serious face. She did not want to smile, because that would be rude. But it was very strange to read a page that said le père meant the father and la mère meant the mother. Miss Minchin looked at her. "You look unhappy, Sara," she said. "I am sorry you don't want to learn French." "I like French very much," Sara said, trying again. "But—" "You must not say, but when you are told to do something," Miss Minchin said. "Look at your book again." Sara did not smile, even when she saw that le fils meant the son and le frère meant the brother. When Monsieur Dufarge comes, she thought, "I will explain to him." A few minutes later, Monsieur Dufarge arrived. He was a kind, middle-aged Frenchman. When he saw Sara studying her book, he looked interested. "Is this a new student for me, madam?" he asked Miss Minchin. "I hope I am lucky today." "Her father, Captain Crewe, wants her to start French right away," Miss Minchin said. "But I am afraid she does not want to learn. She does not seem interested." "I am sorry to hear that," said Monsieur Dufarge kindly. "Perhaps I can show you, mademoiselle, that French is a beautiful language." Sara stood up. She felt worried. It seemed like she was in trouble. But she knew that if she spoke, Monsieur Dufarge would understand. She began to explain in perfect French. Miss Minchin had misunderstood. She had never studied French from a book, but her father and many others had always spoken it to her. She had read and written in French just like in English. Her dear mother, who had died when she was born, was French. She would be happy to learn anything Monsieur Dufarge wanted to teach her, but she already knew the words in this book. She held up the small book of phrases. Miss Minchin was shocked. She sat staring at Sara over her glasses. Monsieur Dufarge, however, smiled with delight. Hearing this little girl speak his language so well made him feel like he was back in France. When Sara finished, he took the phrase book from her with a kind smile. Then he spoke to Miss Minchin. "Ah, madam," he said, "there is little I can teach her. She has not learned French. She is French. Her accent is beautiful. You should have told me." Miss Minchin said angrily. I tried," Sara said softly. "Maybe I didn't explain it well." Miss Minchin knew Sara had tried. She also saw that the other students were laughing quietly. Lavinia and Jessie were giggling behind their books. Miss Minchin became very angry. "Silence, girls," she said, hitting her desk. "Be quiet at once." From that moment, Miss Minchin began to feel annoyed with her special student. Chapter 3. Ermengarde. On Sara's first morning at school, she sat beside Miss Minchin, knowing that all the other girls were watching her. She soon noticed one girl, about her age, looking at her with big, light blue eyes. She was a chubby girl who did not seem very smart, but her face was kind. Her blonde hair was in a tight braid, tied with a ribbon. She had pulled the braid around her neck and was biting the end of the ribbon while resting her elbows on the desk, staring at Sara. When Monsieur Dufarge started speaking to Sara, the chubby girl looked nervous. Then, when Sara answered in French without any warning, she jumped in surprise and her face turned red. She had struggled for weeks trying to remember that asterisk la mère asterisk meant asterisk mother asterisk, and asterisk le père asterisk meant asterisk father star. Now, she saw a girl her own age speaking French so easily, using many words and verbs without a problem. She stared at Sara and bit her ribbon so quickly that Miss Minchin noticed her. Miss Minchin was already in a bad mood, so she became angry. "Miss St. John," she said sharply. "What are you doing? Sit up straight. Take your ribbon out of your mouth." Miss St. John jumped again. When Lavinia and Jessie giggled, she became even redder. Her face looked so unhappy that it seemed like she might cry. Sara saw this and felt sorry for her. She started to like her and wanted to be her friend. Sara always wanted to help people who were sad or treated unfairly. Her father used to say if Sara had been a boy in the past, she would have walked around with a sword, helping anyone in trouble. So, she felt a little fond of Miss St. John and kept glancing at her during the morning. She noticed that lessons were very hard for her. Unlike Sara, she would never be treated as a special student. Her French lesson was especially difficult. Her pronunciation was so bad that even Monsieur Dufarge smiled a little. The other girls, like Lavinia and Jessie, giggled or looked at her as if she were silly. But Sara did not laugh. She tried to pretend she did not hear when Miss St. John said *le bon pain* as *li bong pang star. She had a strong temper, and it made her angry to hear the others laughing. It's not funny, she thought, frowning at her book. They shouldn't laugh at her. When lessons were finished, the girls gathered in groups to talk. Sara looked for Miss St. John. She found her sitting alone in a window seat, looking sad. Sara walked over and spoke to her. She said the kind of things little girls usually say when they first meet, but there was something warm in her voice that made people like her. "What is your name?" she asked. To understand how surprised Miss St. John was, one must remember that a new student is always mysterious. The whole school had talked about Sara the night before until they fell asleep, excited and full of different stories. A new girl with a carriage, a pony, a maid, and a long journey from India was not just any new student. "My name is Ermengarde St. John," she said. "Mine is Sara Crewe," said Sara. "Your name sounds like it's from a storybook. Do you like it?" Ermengarde asked nervously. I like yours." Ermengarde's biggest problem in life was her father. He was very clever, and this made her life difficult. If your father knows everything, speaks 7 or 8 languages, and owns thousands of books, he expects you to remember at least a little from your school lessons. He might also think you should know some history and be able to write a short French exercise. But Ermengarde was a big disappointment to her father. He could not understand how his own child could be so slow and bad at learning. "Good heavens," he often said. "Sometimes I think she is as stupid as her Aunt Eliza." Aunt Eliza had always been slow at learning and quick to forget everything. Ermengarde was just like her. She was the worst student in school. She must be forced to learn, her father told Miss Minchin. Because of this, Ermengarde spent most of her time in trouble or crying. She learned things and then forgot them. And even when she remembered, she didn't really understand them. So it was no surprise that she now looked at Sara with great admiration. "You can speak French, can't you?" she asked in an awed voice. Sara climbed onto the window seat, tucking her feet under her and wrapping her arms around her knees. "I can speak it because I have always heard it," she said. "You could speak it too, if you had always heard it." "Oh, no, I couldn't," Ermengarde said. "I could never speak it." "Why not?" asked Sara. Ermengarde shook her head, making her braid wobble. "You heard me in class," she said. "I'm always like that. I just can't say the words. They sound so strange." She paused, then added with awe, "You are clever, aren't you?" Sara looked out the window at the grey square outside. The sparrows were hopping on the iron railings and the blackened tree branches. She thought for a moment. People often said she was clever, but she wasn't sure if she really was. I don't know, she said. I can't tell. Seeing Ermengarde's disappointed face, Sara smiled and changed the subject. Would you like to see Emily? She asked. Who is Emily? Ermengarde asked, just like Miss Minchin had. Come up to my room and see, said Sara, holding out her hand. They jumped down from the window seat and went upstairs. Is it true, Ermengarde whispered as they walked, that you have a playroom all to yourself? Yes, Sara said. Papa asked Miss Minchin to let me have one because, well, when I play, I make up stories and tell them to myself. I don't like people to hear me. It ruins the fun if I think someone is listening. They reached the hallway near Sara's room. Ermengarde stopped suddenly, staring with wide eyes. You make UP stories, she gasped. You can do that, as well as speak French. Can you? Sara looked at her in surprise. Why, anyone can make up stories, she said. Have you never tried? She put a finger to her lips. Let's be very quiet, she whispered. I'll open the door suddenly, maybe we can catch her. She was half laughing, but her eyes were serious and full of excitement. Ermengarde had no idea what she meant or who they were trying to catch, but she was sure it was something exciting. She tiptoed behind Sara, feeling thrilled. Sara quickly turned the handle and threw open the door. The room was neat and quiet. A small fire was burning in the fireplace. And in a chair by it, a beautiful doll sat, holding a book. Oh, she got back to her seat before we could see her. Sara said. They always do. They move as fast as lightning. Ermengarde looked from Sara to the doll. Can she walk? She asked breathlessly. Yes, Sara said. At least, I believe she can. At least, I pretend she can. That makes it feel real. Have you never pretended things? No, Ermengarde admitted. Never. Tell me about it. She was so amazed by Sara that she couldn't stop looking at her. She had never met anyone like her before. Let's sit down, said Sara. I'll tell you. Once you start pretending, you can't stop. It's wonderful. Emily, listen, this is Ermengarde. Ermengarde, this is Emily. Would you like to hold her? Oh, may I? Ermengarde said. She is beautiful. And Emily was placed in her arms. It was the most magical hour of Ermengarde's life. Chapter 4. Lottie. If Sara had been a different kind of girl, her life at Miss Minchin's school might not have been good for her. She was treated more like a special guest than just a little girl. If she had been bossy, she might have become spoiled because she was always praised and given everything she wanted. If she had been lazy, she wouldn't have learned anything. Miss Minchin did not really like her, but she was too clever to do anything that might make Sara unhappy. She knew that if Sara wrote to her father and said she was sad, Captain Crewe would take her away at once. Miss Minchin believed that if a child was always praised and allowed to do what she liked, she would enjoy staying at school. So Sara was praised for everything, her quick learning, her good manners, and even her kindness. If she gave money to a beggar, it was treated like a great act of generosity. If she had not been naturally kind and clever, she might have become selfish. But her clever mind told her the truth about herself and her situation. She sometimes talked about these thoughts with Ermengarde. Things happen to people by accident, she said. I was lucky. I just happened to like lessons and books. I just happened to have a wonderful father who gave me everything I wanted. Maybe I don't have a good temper at all, but if people are always kind to you, how can you be bad-tempered? I don't know if I am really a nice girl or a horrible one. Maybe I'm a terrible child, but no one knows because I have never had any troubles. Lavinia has no troubles, said Ermengarde, and she is horrible enough. Sara thought about this for a moment. Maybe, she said, it's because she is growing. She remembered hearing Miss Amelia say that Lavinia was growing so fast that it made her feel unwell and bad-tempered. Lavinia was jealous of Sara. Before Sara arrived, Lavinia had been the leader of the school. She was mean to the younger children and acted important in front of the older ones. She was rather pretty and used to be the best-dressed girl, until Sara arrived with her fancy velvet coats, fur muffs, and beautiful hats. At first, Lavinia was angry that Sara was more important than her. But then she saw that Sara was also a leader, not because she was mean, but because she was always kind. One thing about Sara Crewe, Jessie once said, making Lavinia angry, she never acts proud, even though she could. If I had so many nice things and was treated like she is, I think I would act a little proud. It's annoying how much Miss Minchin shows her off when parents visit. Dear Sara must come and talk to Mrs. Musgrave about India, Lavinia mimicked Miss Minchin in a fake voice. Dear Sara must speak French to Lady Pitkin, because her accent is so perfect. She didn't even learn French at this school. She just picked it up from her father. And being an officer in India is nothing special. Well, said Jessie, he killed tigers. The tiger skin in Sara's room is from one he killed. That's why she loves it. She lies on it, strokes its head, and talks to it like it's a pet cat. She's always pretending things, said Lavinia. My mother says pretending is silly and will make her strange when she grows up. But Sara never acted grand. She was friendly and shared her things. The younger children, who were usually ignored by the older girls, adored her because she was always kind to them. She helped them when they fell, gave them sweets, and never called them names. If you are 4, you are 4, she once told Lavinia, after Lavinia called little Lottie a brat. But next year you will be 5, and then 6. And it takes 16 years to be 20. Lavinia rolled her eyes. You like doing math, don't you? The younger children worshipped Sara. She even invited them for tea parties in her room, using Emily's little blue-flowered tea set. After that, she became like a queen to them. The one who loved her most was Lottie Leff. If Sara had not been kind, she might have found Lottie annoying. Lottie's young father didn't know how to take care of her, so he sent her to school. Her mother had died, and she had always been spoiled like a doll or a pet. She screamed whenever she didn't get what she wanted. She had also learned that if people knew she had no mother, they would feel sorry for her. She often used this to get attention. One morning, Sara heard crying from a sitting room. Miss Minchin and Miss Amelia were trying to stop Lottie's loud screams. What is she crying for? Miss Minchin shouted. Oh, oh, oh. I haven't got any mamma. Oh, Lottie, cried Miss Amelia. Please stop. Don't cry. But Lottie just screamed louder. Miss Minchin lost her patience. You shall be punished, you naughty child. But this only made Lottie scream more. Miss Amelia began to cry, and Miss Minchin angrily left the room. Sara had been standing outside, wondering if she could help. She had recently become friends with Lottie and thought maybe she could calm her down. When Miss Minchin saw Sara, she forced a smile. Oh, Sara, she said. I stopped because I knew it was Lottie, Sara explained. I thought maybe I could help her. May I try, Miss Minchin? Miss Minchin frowned. If you can, you are a clever child, she said, though she didn't sound very kind. Then, realizing she had been too harsh, she changed her tone. But you are clever at everything. Go ahead. Sara went inside. Lottie was lying on the floor, kicking and screaming. Miss Amelia looked exhausted. She had tried both kindness and threats, but nothing worked. "Poor darling," she said. Then, "Lottie, stop or I will shake you." Then back to, "Oh, you poor little thing." Sara went to them quietly. She wasn't sure what to do, but she felt that shouting or begging wouldn't help. "Miss Amelia," she said softly, "Miss Minchin says I may try." "May I?" Miss Amelia sighed. "Oh, do you think you can?" "I don't know," Sara said. "But I will try." Miss Amelia hurried out, relieved to escape. Sara sat down on the floor next to Lottie and waited. The room became quiet, except for Lottie's cries. Lottie was used to people reacting when she screamed. But Sara just sat there, looking at her calmly. Lottie stopped kicking and peeked at Sara. "I haven't got any ma, she sobbed, but less loudly. Sara looked at her with understanding. "Neither have I," she said. Lottie stopped crying. She sat up and stared at Sara. "Where is she?" Lottie asked. Sara thought for a moment. "She went to heaven," she said. "But I think she comes back sometimes to see me. Maybe your mother does too. Maybe they are both here right now, watching us." Lottie's eyes grew wide as she looked around. Sara continued, "There are fields of flowers in heaven, and the wind always smells sweet. Little children play and never get tired. The streets shine like gold. People can float anywhere they like. And sometimes they lean over the walls and look down at us, sending us love." Lottie crept closer, listening with big eyes. "I want to go there," she whispered. "I don't have a mama here." Sara saw she might cry again, so she pulled her close with a smile. "I will be your mama," she said. "And Emily will be your sister." Lottie's face lit up. "Really?" "Yes," Sara said. "Let's go tell Emily. Then I will wash your face and brush your hair." Lottie, who had been screaming about not wanting to be washed, happily followed Sara upstairs. From that day, Sara became her new mother. Chapter 5. Becky. The most special thing about Sara, the thing that made her more popular than her fine clothes and her title as the best student, was her talent for storytelling. Even Lavinia, who was jealous of her, could not help being fascinated by it. Anyone who has been at school with a storyteller knows what it is like. People follow them, begging them to tell another tale. Small groups gather, and even those who are not included try to listen from a distance. Sara loved telling stories. When she sat in a circle and began inventing magical tales, her green eyes shone, her cheeks turned pink, and without knowing it, she would start acting out the scenes. Her voice would rise and fall, her body would sway, and her hands would move dramatically. She forgot about the real world. In her mind, she became the fairy, the queen, or the brave prince she was talking about. When she finished, she sometimes had to place a hand on her chest and laugh at herself. "When I tell a story," she said, "it doesn't feel like I'm making it up. It feels more real than this school. I feel like I am every person in the story, one after the other. It's strange." Sara had been at Miss Minchin's school for about 2 years when, on a cold and foggy afternoon, she stepped out of her carriage in her warm coat and furs. She looked much grander than she realized. As she crossed the pavement, she saw a small, dirty-looking girl standing by the kitchen steps, stretching her neck to peek at her through the railings. Something about the girl's curious but nervous expression made Sara stop and smile at her. But as soon as the girl saw that Sara had noticed her, she gasped in fear and ran back into the kitchen as fast as she could. It was so sudden that Sara almost laughed. That evening, as Sara was in the schoolroom telling a story to a group of listeners, the same little girl entered the room. She carried a heavy coal box and knelt by the fireplace to add more coal and clean up the ashes. She looked a little cleaner than before, but just as scared. She worked very quietly, as if she didn't want to disturb anyone or seem like she was listening. She placed the coal in the fire with her fingers, trying not to make any noise, and she swept gently. But Sara noticed that she was slowing down her work on purpose, hoping to hear more of the story. Realizing this, Sara raised her voice slightly. The mermaids swam softly in the clear green sea, pulling behind them a net made of pearls, she said. The princess sat on a white rock, watching them. It was a wonderful story about a princess who fell in love with a prince from the sea and went to live with him in a shining underwater palace. The little servant girl swept the floor once, then again and then again. As she listened, she forgot that she was not supposed to. She knelt down, sitting on her heels, holding the brush in her hand, completely lost in the story. She imagined the glowing blue caves under the ocean, the golden sand, the waving sea plants, and the faraway music. Then suddenly, her brush slipped from her fingers and fell onto the floor. Lavinia turned and saw her. "That girl has been listening," she said loudly. The girl gasped, grabbed her brush, and jumped to her feet. She picked up the coal box and ran out of the room like a frightened rabbit. Sara's face turned red with anger. "I knew she was listening," she said. "Why shouldn't she?" Lavinia tossed her head. "I don't know if your mother would like you telling stories to servant girls," she said. "But my mother wouldn't want me to do it." Sara's face changed. "My mother wouldn't mind at all," she said firmly. "She knows that stories belong to everyone." "I thought your mother was dead," Lavinia said. "How can she know anything?" Sara's voice became serious. "Do you think she doesn't know things?" she said. Lottie, who was sitting nearby, spoke up. "Sara's mama knows everything asterisk," she said. "Just like my mama, except Sara is my mama at school. She tells me about the shining streets and the fields of lilies when she puts me to bed." "You're terrible," Lavinia said to Sara. "Making up fairy stories about heaven." "There are even more wonderful stories in the Bible," Sara replied. "Just read Revelation *. How do you know my stories aren't true?" She stood up. "Come on, Lottie," she said. She walked out of the room, hoping she might see the little servant girl again. That night, she asked Mariette about her. "Who is that girl who brings coal?" Mariette sighed and told her all about her. "Ah, Mademoiselle Sara, she is a poor little thing. She is the new scullery maid, but really, she does everything. She cleans boots, carries coal, scrubs floors, washes windows, and everyone orders her around. She is 14, but she is so small she looks 12. She is always afraid when someone speaks to her." "What is her name?" Sara asked. "Becky. All day long, everyone shouts, 'Becky, do this. Becky, do that.'" Sara sat quietly, thinking about Becky. She imagined a sad story where Becky was the suffering heroine. She thought Becky looked hungry. Her eyes even seemed hungry. She hoped to see her again. A few weeks later, on another foggy afternoon, Sara walked into her sitting room and found something surprising. In her own soft armchair, in front of the warm fire, sat Becky, fast asleep. Her face was smudged with coal dust, her apron was dirty, and her cap was falling off. An empty coal box lay on the floor beside her. She had been cleaning the rooms all day, saving Sara's room for last because it was warm and full of beautiful things. She had sat down just for a moment, and the warmth had been so comforting that she had fallen asleep. Sara had just finished her dancing lesson and was wearing a lovely rose-colored dress. A wreath of real flowers was in her hair, and she looked like a princess. She stepped lightly into the room, saw Becky, and gasped softly, "Oh, that poor thing." She was not angry to see Becky in her chair. Instead, she felt happy to find her there. She walked quietly toward her, not wanting to wake her. But just then, a piece of coal fell from the fire and made a small noise. Becky woke with a jump and saw Sara looking at her. She gasped in terror, clutching at her cap. "Oh, miss. Oh, miss," she stammered. "I'm sorry, miss. I didn't mean to, miss." Sara stepped closer. "Don't be scared," she said gently. "It doesn't matter." Becky's eyes widened. "I didn't mean it, miss," she whispered. "It was just so warm, and I was so tired. Didn't mean to be rude." Sara laughed softly and put her hand on Becky's shoulder. "You were tired," she said. "You couldn't help it. You're still half asleep." Becky stared at her in shock. No one had ever spoken kindly to her before. You're not angry, miss," she stammered. "Of course not," Sara said. "Why should I be?" Becky could not believe it. Sara suddenly smiled. "You know," she said, "we are really the same. I am just a little girl like you. It's just an accident that I am not you, and you are not me." Becky didn't understand. "An accident, miss?" "Yes," Sara said. Then she asked, "Have you finished your work? Can you stay for a few minutes?" Becky gasped. "Here, miss." "Me?" Sara checked the hallway. "No one is here," she said. "Would you like a piece of cake?" Becky's eyes filled with wonder. Sara gave her a big slice of cake and talked with her, asking her questions. Becky couldn't believe it. Sara then asked, "Becky, weren't you listening to my story?" Becky looked guilty. "Yes, miss. I know I shouldn't have, but it was so beautiful, I couldn't help it." Sara smiled. "Would you like to hear the rest?" Becky could barely breathe. "Me? Like a real student?" Sara nodded. "If you tell me when you come to clean my room, I'll tell you a little bit each day until it's finished." Becky's face lit up. "I wouldn't care how heavy the coal boxes were," she whispered, "if I had that to think about." And from that day, Sara's stories became Becky's most precious treasure. Chapter 6. The Diamond Mines. Not long after Sara met Becky, something very exciting happened. Not just to Sara, but to the whole school. Everyone talked about it for weeks. Captain Crewe wrote Sara a letter with a special story. A friend from his school days had visited him in India. This friend owned a large piece of land where diamonds had been found. He was working to open diamond mines, and if things went well, he would become very, very rich. Because he liked Captain Crewe, he offered him a chance to join the business and become rich too. Sara read this in her letter and found it amazing. The words, diamond mines, sounded like something from a fairy tale. She imagined secret tunnels deep underground, with sparkling gems shining on the walls, while mysterious men dug them out with heavy tools. She told Ermengarde and Lottie all about it. Ermengarde loved the story, and Lottie made her tell it every night before bed. But Lavinia was not happy. She did not believe the story. "My mother has a diamond ring that cost £40, she said. "And it is not even big. If there were mines full of diamonds, people would be so rich, it would be ridiculous." "Maybe Sara will be so rich she will be ridiculous," Jessie giggled. "She is already ridiculous," Lavinia sniffed. "I think you do not like her," said Jessie. "I do not hate her," snapped Lavinia. "I just do not believe in diamond mines." "Well, diamonds have to come from somewhere," Jessie said. Then she giggled again. Lavinia, do you know what Gertrude says? I do not care, Lavinia said. It is about Sara, Jessie whispered. She pretends she is a princess. She even pretends during lessons. She says it helps her study better. She wants Ermengarde to pretend too, but Ermengarde says she is too fat to be a princess. She is too fat, Lavinia said. And Sara is too thin. Jessie laughed. Sara says being a princess has nothing to do with what you look like. It is about what you think and do. I suppose she thinks she would still be a princess if she were a beggar, Lavinia said. Let us start calling her Your Royal Highness. The school day was over, and the girls were sitting by the fire in the schoolroom, talking. Miss Minchin and Miss Amelia were in their private sitting room having tea. This was the best time of the day, when the younger girls played, and the older girls shared secrets. If they got too noisy, one of the teachers would come and stop them, but today they were quiet. Just then, Sara entered the room with Lottie. There she is with that spoiled little thing, Lavinia whispered. If she loves her so much, why does she not keep her in her own room? Lottie had wanted to play in the schoolroom, so Sara had brought her there. Lottie joined the smaller girls, while Sara curled up in the window seat with a book. It was about the French Revolution, and soon she was lost in the story. She imagined prisoners locked away for years, growing old and forgotten. When they were finally rescued, they had long grey hair, and their faces were hidden behind beards. Some of them had even forgotten that the outside world existed. Sara was so deep in her book that she did not want to be disturbed. But suddenly, Lottie screamed. Sara jumped. She always found it difficult not to get angry when someone pulled her away from a book. She had once told Ermengarde, "It feels like someone has hit me. I have to remind myself not to say something rude." Now, she put her book down and hurried over. Lottie had been sliding across the floor, annoying Lavinia and Jessie with the noise. Then she had fallen and hurt her knee. She was crying loudly while the other girls tried to calm her down. "Stop crying, you baby," Lavinia said. "I am not a baby." Lottie sobbed. Sara. If she keeps crying, Miss Minchin will come, Jessie whispered. Lottie, I will give you a penny if you stop. I do not want your penny, Lottie wailed. She looked down and saw a little blood on her knee. That made her cry even louder. Sara knelt beside her and put her arms around her. Lottie, she said, you promised me you would try not to cry so much. She called me a baby. Lottie sniffled. But if you keep crying, you are acting like one, are you not? Sara said gently. Lottie pouted. Then, with a dramatic sniff, she said, I do not have a mama. Yes, you do, Sara said, smiling. You forgot. Sara is your mama now. Do you not want Sara for your mama? Lottie snuggled close to her. Will you tell me a story? She asked. Of course, Sara said. Come sit in the window seat with me. Will you tell me about the diamond mines? Lavinia rolled her eyes. That spoiled little thing, she muttered. I would like to slap her. Sara stood up quickly. She had been deep in a serious book and had to remind herself not to lose her temper. Well, she said, I would like to slap you, but I will not. Because we are not wild children fighting in the street. We should know better. Lavinia smirked. Oh yes, Your Royal Highness, she said. We are princesses, are we not? I suppose Miss Minchin's school is very grand now that we have a princess as a student. Sara's face turned red. She had never wanted other girls to know about her pretend game. It was something special to her, something she only shared with Ermengarde and Lottie. But now Lavinia was making fun of it in front of everyone. For a moment, Sara almost lost control. She even lifted her hand as if she might slap Lavinia. But then, she remembered, a princess does not lose her temper. She dropped her hand and stood tall. "It is true," she said calmly. "Sometimes, I do pretend I am a princess. I pretend so that I can try to act like one." Lavinia had no quick answer. Somehow, when Sara spoke, the other girls always listened. Many of them liked princesses and were curious about Sara's pretend game. They leaned closer. Lavinia tried one last remark. "Well, when you become queen, I hope you will not forget us." Sara looked at her seriously. "I will not," she said simply. Then she turned and walked away. After that, whenever the jealous girls wanted to mock her, they called her Princess Sara. But the girls who liked her used the name kindly. Even Miss Minchin, hearing about it, told visiting parents about her princess-like student. To Becky, Sara was a real princess. Since the day she had found her asleep in the chair, Becky's friendship with Sara had grown. They often had secret moments together, sharing stories and little treats that Sara managed to bring her. Becky had always known hardship, but Sara made her laugh. And sometimes, laughter was as filling as food. Chapter 7. The Diamond Mines Again. When Sara entered the schoolroom in the afternoon, it was like a grand event. Miss Minchin, dressed in her finest silk gown, led her by the hand. A manservant followed, carrying a large box that held the last doll. A housemaid carried another box, and at the end of the small procession was Becky, wearing a clean apron and a new cap, holding a third box. Sara would have preferred to walk in normally, but Miss Minchin had insisted on making it special. "This is not an ordinary occasion," she had said. "I do not want it to be treated as one." As Sara stepped in, the older girls stared at her and whispered, while the younger ones squirmed excitedly in their seats. "Silence, young ladies," said Miss Minchin at the sound of their chatter. "James, place the box on the table and remove the lid. Emma, put yours on the chair. Becky." Her sharp voice startled Becky, who had been smiling at Lottie, who was wriggling with excitement. Becky almost dropped her box and quickly made a frightened curtsy. Some of the older girls giggled. "It is not your place to look at the young ladies," Miss Minchin said. "Put your box down." Becky obeyed quickly and backed toward the door. "You may leave us," Miss Minchin said to the servants, waving her hand. Becky stepped aside, letting the others go first. But she could not help glancing at the box on the table. Something blue and shiny was peeking through the tissue paper. "If you please, Miss Minchin," Sara said suddenly, "may Becky stay?" Miss Minchin was so surprised that she nearly jumped. She lifted her eyeglasses and stared at Sara. "Becky," she repeated. "My dear Sara." Sara took a small step forward. "I want her to stay because I know she would like to see the presents," she explained. "She is a little girl too." Miss Minchin looked scandalized. "My dear Sara," she said, "Becky is the scullery maid." "Scullery maids are not little girls." Sara tilted her head. "But Becky is," she said. "And I know she would enjoy this. Please let her stay, because it is my birthday." Miss Minchin hesitated. "As you ask it as a birthday favor, she may stay," she finally said. "Rebecca, thank Miss Sara for her kindness." Becky, who had been twisting the hem of her apron, stepped forward, curtsying so quickly that her words tumbled out. "Oh, if you please, miss. I am so grateful, miss. I really wanted to see the doll, miss, I did. Thank you, miss. And thank you," she added nervously, curtsying toward Miss Minchin. Miss Minchin waved her hand toward a corner near the door. "Go and stand there." not too close to the young ladies. Becky did not care where she stood as long as she could stay. She grinned with happiness. Miss Minchin cleared her throat. "Now, young ladies, I have a few words to say," she announced. Sara felt uncomfortable. She knew this speech was about her. It was never pleasant to stand in front of everyone and be talked about. "You are all aware," Miss Minchin began, "that dear Sara is 11 years old today." "Dear Sara," Lavinia whispered with a smirk. "Several of you have also been 11 years old, but Sara's birthdays are different. One day, she will inherit a great fortune, and it will be her duty to use it wisely." "The diamond mines," Jessie whispered with a giggle. Sara did not hear her, but she felt hot with embarrassment. She did not like when Miss Minchin talked about money. "When her dear father, Captain Crewe, brought her here from India," Miss Minchin continued, "he said to me, 'I am afraid she will be very rich, Miss Minchin.' And I told him, 'Her education at my school shall prepare her for such a fortune.'" Sara kept her eyes steady, though she disliked every word. "Her French and dancing are excellent," Miss Minchin went on. "Her manners, so perfect that you call her Princess Sara, are a credit to my school. And today, she shows her kindness by giving you this party. Now, I want you all to show your gratitude by saying, 'Thank you, Sara.'" The entire school stood up, just like they had on the first morning Sara arrived. "Thank you, Sara," they all said together. Lottie even jumped up and down. Sara, feeling shy, made a small curtsy. "Thank you for coming to my party," she said. "Very good, Sara," Miss Minchin said. "That is how a real princess behaves." Then she looked at Lavinia. "Lavinia, that noise you just made sounded very much like a snort. If you are jealous, please express it in a more ladylike way." As soon as Miss Minchin left the room, everything changed. The little girls jumped out of their seats, and the older ones hurried toward the boxes. Sara opened one of them with a bright smile. "These are books," she said. Some of the children sighed, and Ermengarde looked horrified. "Books?" "For a birthday present," she said. "That is as bad as my father." Sara laughed, but turned to the largest box. When she took out the last doll, everyone gasped. "She is almost as big as Lottie," someone said. Lottie giggled and clapped her hands. "She is dressed for the theatre," Lavinia said. "Her cloak is lined with ermine." "Oh!" Ermengarde cried, rushing forward. "She has a tiny opera glass." "Here is her trunk," Sara said. "Let us see her things." She sat on the floor and opened it. Everyone crowded around as she lifted out tray after tray. There were lace collars, silk stockings, and even a tiny jewel case with a necklace and tiara that sparkled like real diamonds. "She has more clothes than we do," someone exclaimed. Even Lavinia and Jessie forgot to pretend they were too old for dolls. Sara picked up the doll's hat. "Suppose," she said, "she understands human talk and feels proud of being admired." "You are always supposing things," Lavinia said. "I know I am," Sara answered. "It is wonderful. If you suppose something hard enough, it feels real." "That is easy when you have everything," Lavinia said. "Could you suppose and pretend if you were poor and lived in an attic?" Sara paused. "I think I could," she said slowly. "If you were poor, you would have to pretend all the time. But it might not be easy." Just as she finished speaking, Miss Amelia entered. "Sara," she said, "your father's solicitor, Mr. Barrow, is here to see Miss Minchin. She needs the schoolroom for their meeting, so we will go and have our feast now." The children cheered. Miss Amelia led them out, with Sara at the front, leaving the last doll sitting on a chair, surrounded by her fine clothes. Becky, who was not invited to the feast, lingered for a moment, looking at the doll's beautiful things. She picked up a tiny coat and touched it carefully. "Becky, go back to work," Miss Amelia said. Becky quickly set the coat down and turned to leave. But just as she did, she heard voices. Terrified of being caught, she hid under the table. Miss Minchin entered the room with Mr. Barrow, a serious-looking man. He glanced at the expensive doll and frowned. "Birthday presents for an 11-year-old, he muttered. "What a waste." Miss Minchin stiffened. "Captain Crewe is a rich man," she said. "The diamond mines alone." Mr. Barrow turned to her sharply. "There are no diamond mines," he said. "There never were." Miss Minchin went pale. "What do you mean?" she gasped. "Captain Crewe is dead," Mr. Barrow said coldly. "And he has left nothing. The child is a beggar." Miss Minchin stared in shock. "A beggar," she whispered. "Left on my hands." Mr. Barrow nodded. "She has no family. No money. Nothing." Miss Minchin clenched her fists, her face white with rage. Mr. Barrow turned to leave. "I have nothing to do with that, madam," he said coldly. "Barrow and Amp, Skipworth are not responsible. Very sorry this has happened, of course. If you think I will take responsibility for her, you are mistaken." Miss Minchin gasped. "I have been deceived and robbed. I will send her out into the streets." She was so furious that she spoke without thinking. She saw herself burdened with a spoiled child she had never liked, and she lost all control. Mr. Barrow calmly walked toward the door. "I would not do that, madam," he said. "It would not look good for the school. People might talk. Imagine the story going around. A pupil thrown out, penniless and alone." He was a clever businessman and knew Miss Minchin would understand. She could not afford to have people say she was cruel. "Better keep her and make use of her," he added. "She is a clever child. You can get a lot out of her as she grows up. I will get a lot out of her before she grows up." Miss Minchin snapped. "I am sure you will," Mr. Barrow said with a slight smirk. "Good day." He bowed and left, closing the door behind him. Miss Minchin stood still for a moment, glaring at the closed door. She knew he was right. She had no way to get back the money she had spent. Her show pupil had vanished, leaving only a penniless child behind. As she stood there, feeling her loss, she suddenly heard laughter and cheerful voices coming from her private sitting room. The party was still going on. She could at least put a stop to that. As she moved toward the door, it opened and Miss Amelia appeared. When she saw her sister's furious face, she stepped back in fear. "What is the matter, sister?" she asked nervously. Miss Minchin's voice was sharp. "Where is Sara Crewe?" Miss Amelia was confused. "Sara? She is with the children in your sitting room. Does she have a black dress in her fine wardrobe?" Miss Minchin asked bitterly. "A black dress?" Miss Amelia repeated. "A black one. She has dresses in every other color. Does she have a black one?" Miss Amelia looked pale. "No, yes," she stammered. "But it is too small for her. She only has an old black velvet dress, and she has outgrown it. Then go and tell her to take off that ridiculous pink silk dress and put on the black one. It does not matter if it is too short. She will wear it from now on." Miss Amelia wrung her hands. "Oh, sister," she sniffed. "Oh, sister. What has happened?" "Captain Crewe is dead," Miss Minchin said coldly. "He died without a penny. That spoiled, foolish child is now a beggar, and I am left with her." Miss Amelia dropped into a chair. "I have spent hundreds of pounds on her," Miss Minchin said, "and I will never see a penny of it." Stop this silly party. Make her change her dress at once. Miss Amelia gasped. Do I have to tell her now? Right this moment. Miss Minchin snapped. Do not sit there like a fool. Go. Miss Amelia was used to being called foolish. She knew she had no choice. But it was difficult to imagine walking into a room full of happy children and telling the birthday girl that she was now a beggar. Still, it had to be done. She rubbed her eyes with her handkerchief until they were red, then stood up and left the room. Miss Minchin stood alone, fuming. The Princess Sara, indeed, she muttered. She has been treated like a queen. As she stormed past a table, she suddenly heard a loud sniff. What is that? She demanded. The sniff came again. She bent down and lifted the tablecloth. How dare you? She shouted. Come out immediately. Becky crawled out, her face red and tear-streaked. If you please, it is me, she stammered. I know I should not be here. I was looking at the doll, and when I heard you coming, I was scared and hid. You have been listening. Miss Minchin accused. No, Becky protested. I tried to slip out, but I could not. I did not mean to listen, I would never. But I could not help hearing. Then, suddenly, Becky lost her fear. She burst into tears. Oh, please, she cried. I know you will punish me, but I feel so sorry for poor Miss Sara. I feel so sorry. Leave the room. Miss Minchin ordered. Becky curtsied, tears running down her cheeks. Yes, she said, trembling. But oh, please, Miss Sara has been such a fine young lady, and she has always had someone to care for her. What will she do now, without a maid? If, please, could I help her? I will do my kitchen work fast, if you would let me take care of her. Her voice broke. Poor little Miss Sara, the one they called a princess. Miss Minchin's face hardened. That even the scullery maid was taking Sara's side made her angrier than ever. No, she snapped. She will wait on herself, and on others too. Now leave, or you will lose your job. Becky pulled her apron over her head and ran from the room. She fled down to the scullery, where she sat on the floor among the pots and kettles, sobbing. It is just like the stories, she wept. Like the poor princesses that were thrown into the world. Hash, hash, hash. Sara stood in Miss Minchin's sitting room hours later. The party felt like something that had happened long ago. Everything was back to normal. The decorations had been taken down, the desks were in place, and the other girls sat whispering about what had happened. Tell Sara to come to me, Miss Minchin had ordered. And tell her I will have no crying or nonsense. Sister, Miss Amelia had said, she is the strangest child I have ever seen. She did not cry at all. She just stood there, staring at me. She looked so pale. When I finished explaining, her chin trembled, and then she ran upstairs. The other girls cried, but she did not even seem to hear them. It was unsettling. No one knew what had happened in Sara's room after she ran upstairs and locked the door. Even she barely remembered. She only knew she had walked back and forth, repeating to herself in a strange voice, "My papa is dead. My papa is dead." Now, standing before Miss Minchin, she looked like a different child. Her face was white, her eyes dark-ringed, and her black velvet dress was too small. She held Emily tightly in her arms. "Put down your doll," Miss Minchin ordered. "No," Sara said. "She is all I have left." Miss Minchin was taken aback. "You have no time for dolls," she said. "You will work now." Sara said nothing. "Everything has changed," Miss Minchin continued. "You are a beggar. You have no family and no home." Sara's face twitched, but she remained silent. You will wear your plainest clothes. You will work for your living. Sara's eyes brightened slightly. I can work, she said. Then it will not be so bad. What can I do? You will do whatever I tell you, Miss Minchin said. You will run errands, help in the kitchen, and assist with the younger children. If you do not please me, you will be sent away. Sara thought for a moment, then said quietly, I understand. Do you not intend to thank me? Miss Minchin asked. Sara's chest rose and fell. Thank you, she repeated. For my kindness in letting you stay, Miss Minchin said. Sara stepped forward, her eyes fierce. You are not kind, she said. And this is not a home. Then she turned and ran from the room before Miss Minchin could stop her. Chapter 8. In the Attic. The first night Sara spent in her attic was one she never forgot. She lay awake in the dark, feeling a deep sadness she could not explain to anyone. There was no one who would understand. She whispered to herself over and over again, My papa is dead. My papa is dead. It was only later that she realized how hard her bed had been, how cold and empty the room felt, and how the wind howled around the rooftop like a lonely voice. There were even strange scratching and squeaking sounds coming from the walls. Becky had told her what they were. Rats and mice, Becky had said. They fight and play together at night. Sara had never been afraid of mice before, but now, in the silent darkness, she felt something scurry across the floor. She sat up, trembling, and then quickly pulled the blankets over her head. Her new life had begun. The change did not happen slowly, it happened all at once. She must begin as she is to go on, Miss Minchin said to Miss Amelia. She must understand what to expect. The next morning, Sara passed by her old sitting room. The door was open, and she saw that everything had been changed. Her books, her soft cushions, her little luxuries, everything was gone. A plain bed had been placed in the corner. The room would now be used for a new pupil. At breakfast, she saw that her seat next to Miss Minchin had been given to Lavinia. You will sit with the younger children at the small table, Miss Minchin said coldly. You must keep them quiet and make sure they do not waste food. You should have been down earlier. Lottie has already spilled her tea. That was just the beginning. Every day, more tasks were added. She helped the younger children with their lessons, but she was also sent on errands at any time, in any weather. The cook and the housemaids, following Miss Minchin's example, enjoyed bossing her around. At first, Sara tried to do everything well. She thought that if she worked hard and kept silent when she was scolded, people might be kinder to her. She wanted them to see that she was not accepting charity, she was earning her place. But she soon realized that no one cared. The more obedient she was, the more demands were made of her. The servants treated her as someone they could blame for their own mistakes. If she had been older, Miss Minchin might have given her a class to teach and saved money by dismissing a teacher. But since Sara was still a child, she was more useful as an errand girl. She could carry messages, pay bills, and clean a room properly. Her own lessons were forgotten. She was allowed to take old books to the schoolroom at night, but only after she had finished all her work. If I do not study, I will forget everything, she told herself. If I forget, I will become like Becky. I wonder if I could completely forget and start dropping my HS like she does. And one day not even remember that Henry VIII had 6 wives. The strangest part of her new life was how the other girls treated her. She was no longer one of them. She was kept so busy that she hardly had time to talk to anyone. Miss Minchin made sure she lived apart from the others. I will not have her forming friendships, Miss Minchin said. Girls love to feel sorry for people. If she starts telling sad stories, parents will hear about it. It is better that she lives separately. I am already giving her a home. That is more than enough. Sara understood. She saw the way the other students avoided her. They felt awkward around her. She was no longer the girl with diamond mines. She wore shabby dresses, shoes with holes in them, and carried grocery baskets through the streets like a servant. To think she used to have a carriage and a maid, Lavinia said. Now she looks like a little beggar. And she is stranger than ever. I never liked her, but now I cannot stand the way she looks at people. I am looking at them, Sara said when she heard this. I like to know about people. I think about them afterward. She had learned that watching and listening could help her. She kept an eye on Lavinia, who would have enjoyed making trouble for her. Sara never caused trouble herself. She never complained. She carried heavy packages, walked through the rain, and worked harder than anyone else in the house. Inside, her heart was sore and proud. But she never spoke of it. Soldiers do not complain, she would whisper to herself. I will not complain either. I will pretend I am in a war. But there were moments of deep loneliness. Only 3 people brought her comfort. The first was Becky. Even on that terrible first night in the attic, Sara had felt a small comfort knowing Becky was in the room next to hers. During the day, they had little chance to talk. Any conversation would have been seen as wasting time. Don't mind me, miss, Becky had whispered that first morning. I won't say anything polite, but I mean it. I'd get in trouble if I talked too much. But early in the morning, before the others woke up, Becky would slip into Sara's attic to help button her dress. And at night, she would knock softly to see if Sara needed anything. For a long time, Sara was too sad to say much. Becky understood and did not ask questions. The second comfort was Ermengarde, but not right away. At first, Sara forgot about her. Ermengarde had always been her friend, but she was not very clever. She needed help with lessons and loved hearing stories, but she had no interesting ideas of her own. When Sara lost everything, Ermengarde was away visiting her family. When she returned, she did not see Sara for a few days. Then, one afternoon, she saw her walking down the hallway, her arms full of clothes that needed mending. Ermengarde gasped. Sara, is that you? Sara stopped. Yes, she said. How are you? I am well, Ermengarde stammered. She hesitated, then blurted out, Are you very unhappy? Sara suddenly felt a strange anger rise in her. What do you think? She said. Do you think I am happy? She walked past without another word. Later, she realized she had been unfair. Ermengarde was not clever, but she was kind. And now, instead of speaking to her, Sara avoided her. So for weeks, they barely looked at each other. Ermengarde sat alone and stared out the window. One day, Jessie noticed her crying. What are you crying for, Ermengarde? I am not crying, Ermengarde said, her voice shaking. You are. A big tear just rolled down your nose. I do not care, Ermengarde sniffed. I am miserable. That night, when Sara climbed the attic stairs, she saw a faint light under the door. She opened it carefully. Someone was sitting inside, wrapped in a red shawl. Ermengarde. Sara whispered. You will get in trouble. I know, Ermengarde said. But I do not care. Sara, why do you not like me anymore? Sara felt something catch in her throat. I do like you, she said. But everything is different now. I thought you were different too. I thought you were different. Ermengarde cried. You did not want to talk to me. I did not know what to do. And suddenly, they were hugging. For the first time in weeks, Sara felt warmth in her heart. Ermengarde wiped her eyes. I could not bear it any longer, she said. I thought I would come up here and beg you to be my friend again. You are better than me, Sara said. I was too proud. They sat together on the floor. Sara, Ermengarde said, how will you bear living up here? I will pretend, Sara said. I will pretend I am a prisoner in the Bastille. Becky is in the next cell. Ermengarde gasped. And will you tell me the story? Yes, Sara smiled. We are best friends again. Chapter 9. Melchizedek. The third person who brought comfort to Sara was Lottie. She was too young to understand what had happened, but she knew that her beloved Mama Sara looked different. Lottie had heard whispers about Sara's misfortune, but she could not understand why her friend wore a plain black dress and no longer sat in the seat of honor during lessons. She was especially confused when she found out that Sara no longer lived in her beautiful room. Are you very poor now, Sara? She asked one morning, holding Sara's hand tightly. Are you as poor as a beggar? She looked up at her with round, teary eyes. Sara saw that she was about to cry and quickly tried to reassure her. Beggars have nowhere to live, Sara said gently. I have a place to live in. Where do you live? Lottie asked. The new girl is in your room, and it isn't pretty anymore. I live in another room, Sara answered. Is it nice? Lottie asked. I want to see it. You must not talk now, Sara whispered. Miss Minchin is watching. She will be angry with me if you whisper. Sara had already learned that she would be blamed for anything the younger children did wrong. If they were noisy, if they fidgeted, if they spilled their tea, it was always her fault. But Lottie was a stubborn little girl. If Sara would not tell her where she lived, she would find out another way. She asked questions and listened when the older girls gossiped. After gathering enough clues, she set off on an adventure of her own. Late one afternoon, she climbed staircases she had never seen before until she reached the attic floor. There, she found two doors close together. She opened one and gasped. Sara. Mama Sara. Sara had been standing on a wobbly old table, looking out of the window. She turned in shock when she heard Lottie's voice. If Lottie started crying and someone heard, they would both get into trouble. She jumped down and ran to her. Do not cry, she begged. If you make a noise, I will be scolded. I have been scolded all day. It is not such a bad room, Lottie. Lottie looked around, her lower lip trembling. The attic was bare, dark, and cold. She had climbed so many stairs that it felt like she had reached the sky. Why isn't it bad? She whispered. Sara hugged her, feeling comforted by the warm, plump little body. She had had a hard day, and her eyes had been tired from staring at the grey sky through the window. You can see things here that you cannot see downstairs, Sara said. What things? Lottie asked, curiosity flickering in her eyes. Chimneys, with smoke curling into the sky. Sparrows hopping about and talking, just like people do. And other attic windows, one day, someone might open one, and I can wonder who they are. It feels like being in another world. Lottie's eyes widened. Lift me up, she begged. I want to see. Sara lifted her onto the table. They leaned on the windowsill and looked out. The world below seemed far away. The rooftops stretched all around them, the chimneys stood like towers, and the sparrows fluttered fearlessly in their high, secret kingdom. One little sparrow sat on a chimney nearby. He fluffed his feathers, put his head to one side, and watched them. Oh, Sara. Lottie whispered. I like this attic, I like it. Look at the sparrow, Sara whispered back. I wish I had some crumbs to give him. I do. Lottie cried suddenly. She fished in her pocket. I saved a piece of my bun from yesterday. She broke it into crumbs and tossed them onto the windowsill. The sparrow jumped in surprise and flew to a nearby chimney, watching them closely. He is thinking about it, Sara murmured. He is wondering if he should trust us. They waited. After a moment, the sparrow hopped a little closer, then stopped. He tilted his head again, as if trying to decide. Then, all at once, he darted forward, grabbed the largest crumb, and flew away. He will come back, Sara whispered. And he did. This time, he brought a friend. Then another sparrow came. Soon, 3 little birds were chirping and pecking at the crumbs. Lottie was so delighted that she forgot all about the bare attic. It is like magic, she whispered. Sara smiled. This attic can be nice, she said. It is small and high up, like a nest in a tree. And in the mornings, I can see the sky through that little window. If the sun rises, the clouds turn pink, and it feels like I can almost touch them. If it rains, I listen to the drops pattering, as if they are saying something. And at night, I try to count the stars in the square of the sky. It takes such a long time, because there are so many. Lottie stared at her with wide eyes, completely enchanted. I wish I could live here, she said. After Sara led her back downstairs, she returned to her attic. For a moment, she stood in the center of the room, looking around. Now that Lottie had gone, the magic seemed to fade. The bed was still hard. The floor was still cold. The walls were still bare and broken. She sat down on the old footstool and buried her face in her hands. It is lonely, she whispered. Sometimes it is the loneliest place in the world. At that moment, she heard a small sound. A faint scratching near the floor. She lifted her head. A large rat had crept out of a hole in the wall. He sat up on his hind legs, his whiskers twitching, his bright little eyes watching her. He was sniffing the air. He had smelled Lottie's crumbs. Sara did not move. She was not afraid. In fact, she felt almost fascinated. I suppose it is hard to be a rat, she thought. Nobody likes you. People scream and run when they see you. They call you horrid. But nobody asked this rat if he wanted to be a rat when he was born. What if he had wanted to be a sparrow instead? The rat sniffed again. He wanted the crumbs, but was afraid. You can have them, Sara said softly. I will not hurt you. Prisoners in the Bastille used to make friends with rats. Maybe I can make friends with you. Somehow, the rat seemed to understand. Slowly, he scurried forward, picked up the crumbs, and disappeared back into his hole. Sara smiled. I knew he had a family to feed, she murmured. I think I will name him Melchizedek. Hash, hash, hash. A few nights later, when Ermengarde sneaked up to visit, she arrived just in time to hear Sara say, Take it and go home, Melchizedek. Go home to your wife. Ermengarde froze in the doorway. Who are you talking to? She whispered. Sara opened the door and pulled her inside. You must promise not to scream, she said. Scream. Ermengarde gasped. Why would I scream? Sara hesitated. Because I was talking to my rat. Ermengarde let out a tiny squeak and jumped onto the bed, tucking her feet up under her. A rat, she whispered. Sara laughed. He is a very nice rat, she said. I am taming him. Would you like to see him? Ermengarde was horrified. No, she gasped. But as Sara told her about Melchizedek, his whiskers, his bright eyes, how he carefully took food back to his family, Ermengarde's fear slowly turned into curiosity. And when Sara knelt by the hole and whispered, the rat cautiously peeked out. "He knows me now," Sara said. "And he trusts me." Ermengarde stared at the little creature. "Sara," she whispered, "you make everything sound like a story." "Everything is a story," Sara said, smiling. "Even a rat in an attic." Chapter 10. The Indian Gentleman. It was not easy for Ermengarde and Lottie to visit the attic. They could never be sure when Sara would be there, and they always feared that Miss Amelia might come checking the rooms after bedtime. So their visits were rare, and Sara lived a quiet, lonely life. In some ways, she felt lonelier downstairs than she did in her attic. She had no one to talk to, and when she went on errands, walking through the streets with her basket, she felt invisible. The people rushing past did not see her. When she had been the Princess Sara, she had ridden in a carriage or walked with Mariette. People had turned to look at her cheerful face, her fine coats and hats. But now, dressed in shabby clothes, she was just another poor girl in the crowd. No one paid attention. She had grown taller, but her clothes had not. She knew she looked strange, wearing outgrown dresses and shoes with holes in them. Sometimes, when she caught sight of herself in a shop window, she almost laughed. Other times, her face turned red, and she bit her lip and hurried away. In the evenings, when she walked past houses with bright windows, she liked to look inside and imagine the lives of the people sitting by the fires. She had even invented names for one family she often saw. She called them the large family. She had not named them that because they were big, but because there were so many of them. There were 8 children, a cheerful mother, a jolly father, and a kind-looking grandmother. They were always doing happy things, rushing to meet their father when he came home, searching his pockets for surprises, laughing at the windows, and playing together. Sara was fond of them, though they did not know she existed. She had even given them fancy names, like those in books. The youngest was Ethelberta Beauchamp Montmorency. The next was Violet Chumley Montmorency. Then came Sidney Cecil Vivian Montmorency, Lillian Evangeline Maud Marion, Rosalind Gladys, Guy Clarence, Veronica Eustacia, and Claude Harold Hector. One evening, something unexpected happened. The Montmorencys were going to a party, and just as Sara passed their house, they were stepping into their carriage. The little girls wore white lace dresses with colourful sashes. The youngest boy, Guy Clarence, was just climbing in. He was a beautiful child with round cheeks, blue eyes, and soft curls. Sara stopped for a moment to look at him. She forgot about her basket, her old dress, and everything else. Guy Clarence, however, noticed her. It was Christmas time, and the large family had been reading stories about poor children who had nothing. Guy Clarence had been moved to tears that very afternoon, wishing he could help a poor child himself. And now, here she was. He saw a thin girl with large eyes, standing on the pavement in an old dress and a shabby hat. He thought she must be very hungry. He did not know that the hunger in her eyes was not for food but for warmth, love, and a happy home like his own. He put his hand into his pocket and found his treasure, a 6pence. He had been saving it, believing it would make a poor child rich forever. He walked up to Sara and held it out. "Here, poor little girl," he said kindly. "Here is a 6pence. I will give it to you." Sara froze. For the first time, she realized how she must look. She had often given pennies to street children before, but now she was one of them. Her face turned red. Then it turned pale. "Oh no," she said. "Oh no, thank you. I must not take it." Her voice was not like that of an ordinary beggar. Guy Clarence's sisters, Veronica Eustacia and Rosalind Gladys, leaned forward to listen. But Guy Clarence was determined to be generous. He pushed the sixpence into her hand. "Yes, you must take it," he insisted. "You can buy food with it. It is a whole sixpence." Sara looked at his eager little face. He would be heartbroken if she refused. So, swallowing her pride, she accepted it. "Thank you," she said gently. "You are a very kind little boy." Guy Clarence beamed as he climbed into the carriage. As the door shut and the carriage rolled away, Sara stood in the street, gripping the sixpence, blinking quickly as her eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she had been mistaken for a beggar. Inside the carriage, the large family children were talking excitedly. "Donald," cried Janet, whose real name was Veronica Eustacia, "why did you give that little girl your sixpence?" "I do not think she was a beggar." "She did not speak like a beggar," added Nora, who was Rosalind Gladys. "And she did not look exactly like one," said Janet. "I was afraid she would be angry. People do not like being mistaken for beggars when they are not." "She was not angry," said Donald, Guy Clarence's real name. "She laughed a little and said I was kind. And I was." He puffed out his chest. "It was my whole sixpence." Janet and Nora exchanged glances. A beggar girl would have curtsied and said, "Thank you kindly, little gentleman," said Janet. From that night, the large family became just as interested in Sara as she was in them. Whenever she passed their house, faces appeared at the nursery windows. They began to call her the little girl who is not a beggar, though it was quite a long name, and the younger children often said it too fast and made everyone laugh. Sara kept the sixpence. She carefully bored a hole in it, tied it to a ribbon, and wore it around her neck. Her love for the large family grew, as did her love for Becky. She also looked forward to the 2 mornings each week when she gave French lessons to the younger children. The little ones adored her. They tried to sit as close to her as possible, slipping their hands into hers. It made her heart ache in a sweet way. She also became close to the sparrows. They knew her now. When she stood on her table, leaned out of the attic window, and chirped, a flutter of wings always followed. The little birds arrived at once, hopping on the slates, ready for the crumbs she scattered. Even Melchizedek had become her friend. He brought Mrs. Melchizedek with him sometimes, and even a few of his children. He seemed to understand when she spoke to him. Emily, however, was different. Sara wanted to believe that Emily understood her. She wanted to pretend that Emily was more than just a doll. Sometimes, when the attic was cold and dark, she would sit in front of Emily and stare at her, hoping she would answer. She never did. But I do not answer very often either, Sara told herself. When people are unkind, I just look at them and think instead of speaking. Maybe Emily is the same. Still, it was not always enough. Some nights, when she came back wet, hungry and exhausted, she could not pretend. One evening, after a particularly hard day, she stared at Emily's glass eyes and stiff arms and felt something inside her break. "I cannot bear it," she whispered. "I have walked 1,000 miles today, and I am freezing. The cook did not give me any supper. And men laughed at me in the street because my shoes slipped in the mud. And you." She turned on Emily, tears filling her eyes. "You do not care. You are just a doll. A doll, a doll, a doll." She knocked Emily off her chair. Emily lay on the floor, undisturbed, staring at the ceiling. Sara buried her face in her hands, sobbing. After a while, she looked up. Emily still lay there. But now, somehow, her glassy eyes looked almost kind. Sara wiped her face, feeling embarrassed. "You cannot help being a doll," she said softly. "Just like I cannot help being what I am now." She picked Emily up, smoothed her dress, and put her back in her chair. "I suppose you do your best," she sighed. Chapter 11. Ram Das. Sometimes, even in the grey city square, the sunsets were beautiful. Though they were mostly hidden behind chimneys and rooftops, the sky would still fill with golden and pink light. From the kitchen, one could only guess that a sunset was happening by the way the bricks glowed or how a window reflected the colours. But from the attic, one could see everything. Sara had discovered this early on. Whenever she could escape unnoticed, she would hurry up the stairs, climb onto her table, and lean out of the skylight. There, she could breathe the fresh air and watch the sun melt into the clouds, turning them shades of crimson, gold, and violet. No one else ever looked out from the other attic windows. The skylights were usually closed. So when she leaned out, it felt as if the whole sky belonged to her. She would stand quietly, watching the clouds shift and stretch into shapes that looked like floating islands or mountains of gold. Sometimes, they seemed like castles with high towers. Other times, when the wind was strong, they moved swiftly, like flocks of birds flying across the sky. One evening, as she stood gazing at the colours, she suddenly heard a faint chattering sound nearby. It came from the attic next door. She turned quickly and saw something unexpected. A man, dressed in white robes, had climbed partway out of the skylight. He wore a white turban, and his dark face looked both gentle and sad. In his arms, nestled against him, was a small monkey, its tiny hands clinging to his clothes. Sara recognized him at once as an Indian manservant, Alaska, as her father had called them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sara smiled. She had learned that a smile, even from a stranger, could bring comfort. The man looked surprised, then delighted. His sorrowful face brightened, and he smiled back, revealing gleaming white teeth. As he lifted his hand in greeting, the monkey suddenly wriggled free, darted across the roof, and leaped through Sara's attic window. Sara gasped, then laughed. The monkey was small and full of mischief. It scampered across the floor, then jumped onto the bed, chattering excitedly. Sara turned back to the man. "Will he let me catch him?" she asked in Hindustani. The man's eyes widened in astonishment. Sara could see that she had surprised him in the best possible way. To hear a little English girl speak his language must have felt like a miracle. He bowed deeply. "Miss Sahib speaks Hindustani?" he asked, his voice full of wonder. "My father was a captain in India," Sara explained. "I used to speak it every day." The man nodded eagerly. "The little monkey is foolish, Miss Sahib," he said. "He is not bad, but he is very quick. He will not bite, but he will run away." He hesitated, then added, "If Miss Sahib allows, I can cross the roof and enter the window. I will take him back before he causes trouble." Sara nodded. "Come," she said. "He is jumping from side to side, as if he is playing a game." A moment later, the man moved with surprising grace. He stepped out of his skylight, crossed the slates as lightly as a cat, and slipped into her attic. The monkey squeaked in excitement, darting away. But the man was patient. He spoke softly, then moved quickly. In a flash, the monkey was back in his arms, clinging to his neck. Sara laughed. "He is very naughty," she said. The man bowed again. "Miss Sahib is kind," he said. "The master will be pleased. He is ill and lonely. This little one amuses him. If he had been lost, the master would have been very sad." "Is the master the Indian gentleman?" Sara asked. "Yes," the man answered. "He is a great Sahib. He has suffered much." Sara could tell that he had noticed the poor condition of her attic. But he was too polite to say anything. After thanking her again, He slipped back through the skylight and disappeared as easily as he had come. Sara stood for a long time, thinking. Seeing the Indian man had brought back so many memories of her father, of the warm, golden light of India, of the days when servants had bowed to her with the same respect. She was no longer the little girl people had salaamed to. She was a servant herself now, dressed in worn clothes, expected to run errands through the cold streets. And yet, Sara lifted her chin. Whatever happens, she whispered, I can still be a princess inside. A princess, she thought, was not just someone who wore fine clothes and had servants. A true princess was noble in spirit. Anyone can be a princess, she told herself. It is the way you behave, not what you wear or what people call you. If I were truly a princess, I would be just the same even if I had nothing. She thought of Marie Antoinette in prison. Her throne had been taken, her riches were gone, her hair had turned white from grief. But she had not begged for mercy. She had remained proud, a queen even in her last moments. I like her best when she was in prison, Sara thought. She was braver then than when she was surrounded by jewels and silk. She stood still for a long time, watching the last glow of the sunset fade. Miss Minchin and the others might call her a servant, might dress her in rags, might treat her with coldness. But they could not change what was inside her. I will behave like a princess no matter what, she decided. That is the greatest triumph of all. The next morning, Sara was in the schoolroom, finishing a lesson with the younger children. She was thinking of great kings and queens who had disguised themselves among the common people, Alfred the Great, who had lived as a servant in a peasant's home. She wondered how he had felt, knowing he was a king, even as he baked bread and swept the floor. Just then, Miss Minchin's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. Sara Crewe. Sara looked up. Miss Minchin was walking toward her with a scowl. You are not paying attention, she snapped. Sara blinked. I was thinking, she said honestly. Miss Minchin's face darkened. Thinking. How dare you think, she exclaimed. Beg my pardon immediately. Sara hesitated. I will beg your pardon for not listening, she said. But I will not beg your pardon for thinking. The entire class gasped. Jessie and Lavinia nudged each other. The girls always watched closely when Miss Minchin was angry at Sara. Sara never cried. She never looked frightened. Miss Minchin was furious. What were you thinking? She demanded. Sara's bright eyes met hers. I was thinking that if I were a real princess, you would not dare to speak to me like that, she said. And I was thinking that perhaps, even now, I am a princess. You just do not know it. There was silence. Miss Minchin turned red with anger. Go to your room this instant, she shouted. Sara curtsied. Excuse me for laughing, she said, if it was rude. Then she walked out of the room with her head held high. As soon as she was gone, Jessie whispered, Did you see her face? She looked like she really believed it. Lavinia smirked, but her voice was uncertain. What if she really was something special, she said. And we never knew. Chapter 12. The Other Side of the Wall. When one lives in a row of houses, it is interesting to think about what might be happening on the other side of the wall. Sara often amused herself by imagining what was taking place in the house next door, the one belonging to the Indian gentleman. She knew that the schoolroom was next to his study, and she hoped the wall was thick enough to keep the noise from disturbing him. I am quite fond of him, she said to Ermengarde one day. I wouldn't like him to be disturbed. I have adopted him as a friend. But you don't even know him, said Ermengarde, puzzled. You can adopt people without speaking to them at all, Sara explained. You can watch them and think about them and be sorry for them, and after a while, they seem almost like family. I feel that way about him. I worry when I see the doctor visit him twice a day. I have very few relations, Ermengarde said thoughtfully, and I'm glad of it. I don't like the ones I have. My aunts are always telling me I'm too fat, and my uncle is always asking me questions like, who was the first king of England, or who died from eating too many lampreys? Sara laughed. People you never speak to can't ask you questions like that, she said. And I'm sure the Indian gentleman wouldn't, even if he knew you well. She had come to care for the Indian gentleman because he looked sad, just as she had grown fond of the large family because they looked happy. His illness had left him thin and weak, and Sara often saw him sitting alone in his warm study, staring into the fire as if he were thinking about something painful. In the kitchen, the servants discussed him often. He was not actually an Indian, they said, but an Englishman who had lived in India. He had once believed he had lost all his wealth and had fallen into such despair that he nearly died. Though his fortune had been restored, his health had never fully returned. And it was all because of diamond mines, the cook said. I wouldn't trust a penny of my savings in a mine, especially not one with diamonds. Sara listened, her heart full of sympathy. He felt the way my papa felt, she thought. He was ill just as my papa was. But he didn't die. Whenever she was sent out on errands, she sometimes hoped she would return just as the curtains in the house next door were still open. If no one was watching, she would pause by the iron railings and whisper a soft good night. Perhaps you can feel kind thoughts, even if you can't hear them, she imagined. Maybe, when I stand here in the cold, hoping you will get well, you feel just a little warmer and don't know why. I wish you had someone to take care of you, the way I used to take care of Papa. I would like to be your little Mrs. too. Good night, dear Indian gentleman. I hope you sleep well. She would walk away feeling as if, in some small way, she had given him comfort. But she also knew that something troubled him still. Even though his fortune had been restored, he did not look like a man who had left his worries behind. He always seems to be thinking about something painful, she said to herself. I wonder if there is something else. She suspected that the father of the large family, whom she called Mr. Montmorency, knew what it was. He visited the Indian gentleman often, and sometimes he brought his wife and children. It was clear that the two oldest girls, Janet and Nora, were particularly dear to him. He says we cheer him up, Janet had told her. So we try to be very quiet when we visit him. Janet was the sensible one, and she was the one who decided when it was time to stop talking and let him rest. Sometimes she told Ram Das to go to him. They all liked Ram Das, even though he spoke only Hindustani. The Indian gentleman's real name was Mr. Carrisford, and it was Janet who told him about the little girl who was not a beggar. He had listened with great interest, and when Ram Das later described Sara's attic and the adventure of the monkey, he had become even more thoughtful. That poor little one, he murmured. A child should not live in such a place. One evening, as he sat before the fire, he turned to Mr. Carmichael, the father of the large family. Carmichael, he said, how many attics like that one do you suppose there are in this city? How many little servant girls sleep on hard beds while I sit here, troubled by my own comfort? My dear fellow, Mr. Carmichael answered, if you spend your time thinking that way, you will never be at peace. If you refurnish all the attics in this square, there will still be 1,000 more to fix. Mr. Carrisford rested his forehead in his hands. But what if, he said slowly, the child I have been searching for is living in such an attic? What if Ralph Crewe's daughter is in the same condition as that poor girl next door? Mr. Carmichael hesitated. He knew that his friend's greatest weakness was his guilt, and that these thoughts only deepened his suffering. If the child Madame Pascal spoke of was really Ralph Crewe's daughter, he said gently, she was adopted by a wealthy family. She is well cared for. But you say if, Carrisford said. You are not certain. Madame Pascal called her Carew instead of Crewe, but that could have been a mistake. The details were very similar. An English officer in India had placed his daughter in a Paris school. He died suddenly, believing he had lost everything. Are you certain the school was in Paris? Carrisford asked. Mr. Carmichael hesitated. You were close to Captain Crewe, he said. Did he ever mention exactly where she was? Carrisford pressed his fingers against his temples. I remember nothing clearly, he said. We were so obsessed with the mines that we talked of nothing else. I knew he had a little girl in a school somewhere. But I never asked where. He looked up suddenly. I must find her, Carmichael, he said, his voice shaking. If she is alive, she is somewhere. If she is suffering, it is because of me. How can I live with that? If I had not run away when the mines failed, I could have helped him. Instead, I left him to die believing I had ruined him. I will never forgive myself. You were delirious with brain fever, Carmichael reminded him. If you had been in your right mind, you would have stayed. You were not well enough to make a rational decision. Carrisford shook his head. And when I woke, Crewe was dead, he said. And I could remember nothing. Not even the name of the school. Mr. Carmichael put a hand on his shoulder. You cannot change the past, he said. But you can change the future. We will find her. If she is in Moscow, I will go there myself. If only I were strong enough to go with you, Carrisford murmured. But I can do nothing but sit here in my fur-lined chair while my friend's child might be. He stopped suddenly, his face pale. Sometimes I dream of Crewe, he said. He stands before me and asks the same question, over and over again. What does he ask? Carrisford's voice was quiet, but filled with pain. He says, Tom, old man, where is the little missus? On the other side of the wall, Sara sat in her attic, whispering to Melchizedek. It has been difficult to be a princess today, she said. The streets were wet, and I slipped in the mud. Lavinia saw, and she laughed at my dress. I thought of something clever to say, but I held my tongue. If I am a princess, I must behave like one. But it was hard. She sighed, resting her head on her arms. Oh, Papa, she whispered, what a long time it seems since I was your little missus. And so, on both sides of the wall, two people lay awake, thinking of the same person. Neither of them knew how close they were to finding each other. Chapter 13. One of the Populace. The winter was harsh and unrelenting. There were days when Sara had to trudge through deep snow, and others when the snow had melted into cold, murky slush that seeped into her worn shoes. The fog was sometimes so thick that the street lamps had to remain lit even during the day. The city looked just as it had the day her father's carriage had carried her through London, her head resting against his shoulder. On such days, the house of the large family looked even more inviting than usual. The warm glow from their windows made Sara long for the cheerful voices and the security of a home filled with love. She also thought of the Indian gentleman, wrapped in his great dressing gown, by the fire in his richly furnished study. Meanwhile, her attic remained cold and damp, without even the solace of sunsets or starlit skies. The clouds loomed heavy and grey, pressing down upon her small world. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, daylight had faded completely. If she needed to fetch something from her room, she had to light a candle to see her way. The dreariness of the season affected everyone. The servants in the kitchen were irritable and short-tempered. Becky, always overworked, was driven harder than ever. If it wasn't for you, miss, she whispered hoarsely one evening, after creeping into the attic, if it wasn't for you, and the Bastille, and me being the prisoner in the next cell, I'd die. That there does seem real now, don't it? The missus is more like the head jailer every day. I can just see them big keys she carries. The cook, she's like one of the under-jailers. Tell me some more, miss. Tell me about the secret tunnel we've been digging under the walls. I'll tell you something even better, Sara said, shivering. Get your coverlet and wrap it around you. I'll do the same, and we'll huddle close together on the bed. I'll tell you about the tropical forest where the Indian gentleman's monkey used to live. When I see him sitting on the table by the window, looking out so mournfully, I always think he's remembering it, the coconut trees he used to swing from. I wonder who caught him, and if he left a little monkey family behind, waiting for him to bring them coconuts. That's warmer, miss, Becky said gratefully, drawing her thin blanket around her shoulders. But even the Bastille warms me up a bit when you tell about it. That's because it makes you think of something else, Sara said, peering at Becky from within her own coverlet. I've noticed that's the trick. When your body is miserable, you have to make your mind think about something else. Can you always do it, miss? Becky asked, looking at her with admiration. Sara furrowed her brows. Sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't, she admitted. But when I can, it makes everything better. I think if we practiced enough, we could always do it. I've been practicing a lot, and it's getting easier. When things are terrible, just terrible, I tell myself, I am a princess, and I am a fairy one, and fairies don't feel cold or hunger or pain. You can't imagine how much it helps. She had to practice this skill more often than ever, but never was it tested so fiercely as on a particular dreadful day that she would remember for years to come. For days, the rain had not ceased. The streets were sodden, and the wind blew cold against her thin jacket. The mud in the roads was thick and treacherous. She was sent out again and again on errands, walking for miles through the mist and slush, her feet soaked through, her body shivering. Miss Minchin had denied her dinner as punishment for some imagined fault, so she was hungry as well as cold. She looked paler and thinner than ever, and her face had a pinched, worn-out look. She tried, as always, to make her mind think of something else. Suppose I had warm clothes, she thought. Suppose I had strong boots and a thick coat and dry stockings. Suppose, just as I was passing a bakery, I found a sixpence on the ground. I could buy 6 hot buns and eat them all at once. And then, in that strange way that life sometimes works, something extraordinary happened. She had to cross the street, stepping carefully between the puddles. As she did, she saw something shining in the gutter. A small coin, trodden on by many feet, but still glinting through the mud. It was not quite a sixpence, but close a 4-penny piece. For a moment, she could only stare. "Oh," she whispered. "It is true." Then she looked up and saw, directly in front of her, a bakery. And just as she looked, a stout, rosy-cheeked woman placed a tray of steaming, golden-brown buns in the window. They were plump, warm, and filled with currants. The smell drifted out onto the damp street, making her head feel light. She hesitated only a moment before stepping toward the shop. But as she did, she noticed something even smaller and more forlorn than herself, a little girl huddled near the doorway, wrapped in nothing but rags. Her bare feet, red with cold, peeked out beneath her tattered dress. Her tangled hair fell over a thin, dirty face, and her hollow eyes were fixed on the buns with desperate longing. Sara felt her heart tighten. This, she thought, is one of the populace. And she is hungrier than I am. She gripped her 4-penny piece and looked at the child. "Are you hungry?" she asked. The girl hunched her shoulders and mumbled, "Ain't I just?" "Haven't you had anything to eat?" "No breakfast. No dinner. No supper. Nothing. Dot." Sara swallowed. "If I'm a princess," she thought, "I must give what I have." She walked into the bakery. "Have you lost fourpence?" she asked the woman at the counter, holding out the little coin. The woman looked at her in surprise. "Bless you, no," she said. "Did you find it?" "Yes," Sara answered. "In the gutter." "Then keep it," the woman said. "It's been there long enough. No telling who lost it." Sara nodded and turned to the tray of buns. "4, please," she said. The woman put 6 into a paper bag. "I said 4, Sara reminded her. "I threw in 2 extra," the woman said kindly. "You look like you could use them." Sara's throat tightened. "Thank you," she whispered. When she stepped outside, the beggar child was still there staring. Sara handed her one of the hot buns. "Eat this," she said. "It will help." The girl snatched it and devoured it in wild, wolfish bites. Sara placed another in her lap. Then another. She hesitated before taking out a 4th. "I'm not starving," she reminded herself. And so she gave the girl the 5th bun as well. As Sara walked away, she turned back. The girl was watching her, a half-eaten bun in her hand. For the first time, she had stopped eating, not because she was full, but because she was staring. Inside the bakery, the woman had seen everything. If that young one didn't give away her whole supper to that beggar child, she muttered. And she looked hungry enough herself. "I wish she hadn't gone so fast. I'd have given her a dozen." She glanced at the little beggar, still clutching her buns. "Come inside, girl," she said gruffly. "Get warm. And if you're ever starving, you come here for bread. That young one has done you a kindness, and I won't forget it." Meanwhile, Sara crossed the square, nibbling at her last bun, her stomach still half empty. "Suppose it were magic," she whispered. "Suppose each bite felt like a feast." At the same time, in a house across the square, the father of the large family stepped into his waiting carriage. He was leaving for Moscow. He did not know it, but his journey would soon bring him closer to the little girl he was searching for, the lost daughter of Captain Crewe. Chapter 14. What Melchizedek Heard and Saw. On the very afternoon that Sara was out, something unusual happened in the attic. Only Melchizedek, the small rat, was there to witness it, and what he saw and heard left him trembling with fear and confusion. The attic had been quiet for most of the day after Sara had left in the early morning. The only sound had been the steady patter of rain on the slates and the skylight. Melchizedek, feeling restless, had decided to explore, sniffing around for any crumbs Sara might have left behind. He had just discovered a tiny, unexpected morsel when a strange noise made him freeze in place. Something was moving on the roof. The sound was soft but unmistakable, footsteps carefully placed. His whiskers twitched with alarm. Then, to his horror, the skylight was pushed open and 2 dark faces appeared, peering inside with cautious curiosity. Melchizedek did not know who these men were. All he knew was that they were invaders in the attic's silence. His heart pounded as one of them, a tall man wrapped in white, slipped soundlessly through the opening and landed lightly on the floor. Before the second man could follow, Melchizedek made a panicked dash back to his hole and curled up inside, peeking out in fear. The first man was Ram Das, the Indian servant, and the second was a young man, Mr. Carrisford's secretary. But Melchizedek only knew them as intruders. "Was that a rat?" the young man whispered as he caught a glimpse of Melchizedek's retreating tail. "Yes, Sahib," Ram Das replied softly. "There are many in the walls." The young man shuddered. It is a wonder the child is not terrified of them. Ram Das gave a small, knowing smile. "She is not like other children, Sahib. She is the little friend of all living things. I have watched her many nights, unseen. The sparrows come to her, and even the rat is her companion. She feeds it, and it trusts her. The poor servant girl downstairs comes to her for comfort. And the little one who is often sent to bed crying, she creeps up here to listen to her stories. The young man turned to look around the room. And yet she is treated like a beggar, he murmured. She carries herself like a princess, Ram Das said. Even in rags, she has the bearing of one who was born to kindness. You are certain no one else comes here? The secretary asked. If she were to discover us, it would ruin the Sahib's plan. I am certain, Ram Das replied, moving silently to the door. She has gone out with her basket and may not return for hours. I will hear her steps before she reaches the attic. The young man nodded and took out a notebook, making swift notes as he examined the room. He pressed his hand on the bed and frowned. Hard as stone, he muttered. This will have to be changed. He lifted the blanket. Thin, worn. The sheets are ragged. What a bed for a child. Ram Das gestured toward the fireplace. There has been no fire here in all the nights I have watched. The secretary made another note. We will change that, too. He walked to the walls and touched them. His eyes lit up when he noticed something. There are old nails here, he observed. Ram Das nodded. Yesterday, while she was away, I placed small nails in the plaster, just where I may need them. The secretary smiled. You have planned well. It was a fancy at first, Ram Das admitted humbly. She once stood at the window and described how beautiful this room could be if it were warm and full of comfort. I listened from the roof. The Sahib was ill that day, so I told him of her dream to amuse him. He has never forgotten it. The young man sighed. And now he wants to make it real for her. Ram Das nodded. She will wake to find a magician has come in the night. The secretary closed his notebook. Let us go, he said. The Sahib will be eager to hear of this. Silently, they climbed back through the skylight and disappeared into the night. Melchizedek, still huddled in his hole, waited for a long time before daring to scurry out. He sniffed the air carefully, twitched his whiskers, and then, deciding it was safe, darted back into the room to check if these strange men had left any crumbs behind. Chapter 15. The Magic. When Sara walked past the house next door, she saw Ram Das closing the shutters. She also saw a little of the room inside. I have not seen a nice room for a long time, she thought. Inside, a fire was burning brightly. The Indian gentleman sat in front of it. He rested his head in his hand and looked very lonely and sad. Poor man, Sara said. I wonder what he is thinking about. At that moment, the Indian gentleman was thinking to himself, what if Carmichael finds the people in Moscow, but the girl they took from Madame Pascal's school in Paris is not the one we are looking for? What if she is a different girl? What should I do next? Sara went back to her house. When she entered, she saw Miss Minchin coming downstairs. She looked angry. Where have you been all this time? Miss Minchin asked. You were outside for hours. It was raining, and the ground was muddy, Sara said. My shoes are bad, so I kept slipping. It was hard to walk. Do not make excuses, Miss Minchin said. And do not tell lies. Sara went into the kitchen. The cook had also been scolded by Miss Minchin and was very angry. She was happy to have someone to be angry at. Why did you stay out all night? She said. Sara put the things she bought on the table. Here are the things, she said. The cook looked at them and grumbled. Can I have something to eat? Sara asked softly. Tea is finished, the cook said. Did you think I would keep it hot for you? Sara stood still for a moment. I did not have dinner, she said in a low voice. She spoke softly because she did not want her voice to shake. "There is some bread in the pantry," the cook said. "That is all you will get." Sara went to the pantry and found the bread. It was old and dry. The cook did not give her anything to eat with it. Sara climbed the stairs to her attic. She was very tired. The stairs felt very long. She had to stop and rest a few times. When she reached the top, she saw a small light under the door. Ermengarde must be here, she thought. She opened the door. Ermengarde was sitting on the bed with her feet under her. She was wearing her red shawl. "Oh, Sara," Ermengarde said. "I am so glad you are here." Melchizedek was sniffing around. "I tried to make him go away, but he would not. I like him, but I get scared when he sniffs at me. Do you think he will ever jump?" "No," said Sara. Ermengarde moved forward on the bed and looked at her. "You look so tired, Sara," she said. "And your face is very pale." "I am tired," Sara said. She sat down on the small stool. She saw Melchizedek coming out of his hole. "Poor Melchizedek," Sara said. "You are looking for food, but I have nothing for you." She put her hand in her pocket and turned it inside out. She shook her head. "I am very sorry," she said. "I have nothing left. Go home and tell your family there is no food today. I forgot to bring something for you because the cook and Miss Minchin were so angry." Melchizedek seemed to understand. He slowly went back into his hole. Sara looked at the table. She saw a pile of books. "My father sent me more books," Ermengarde said. She pointed at them. "They are over there." Sara quickly went to the table and picked up one of the books. She turned the pages. She forgot about being tired and hungry. "Oh," she said. "This is The French Revolution by Carlyle. I wanted to read this so much." "I did not," Ermengarde said. "My father wants me to read them, but I do not want to. He will ask me about them when I go home. What should I do?" Sara thought for a moment. "I have an idea," she said. "If you give me the books, I will read them. Then I will tell you the stories in a way you can remember." "Oh, do you think you can?" Ermengarde said. "I know I can," Sara said. "The little children remember the stories I tell them." "If you do that," Ermengarde said, "I will give you anything." "I do not want anything," Sara said. "I just want the books." Her eyes were big with excitement. "Take them," Ermengarde said. "I wish I wanted to read them, but I do not. My father is clever, and he thinks I should be too." Sara opened the books one by one. "But what will you tell your father?" she asked. "Oh, he does not need to know," Ermengarde said. "He will think I read them." Sara put the book down and shook her head. "That is almost like telling a lie," she said. "And lies are not just bad, they are ugly." "But my father wants me to read them," Ermengarde said. "He wants you to learn," Sara said. "If I tell you the stories, and you understand them, maybe that is enough." Ermengarde felt a little better. Sara smiled. "Now, let me take off my wet clothes. Then I will tell you about the French Revolution again." Sara sat on the bed and told the story. Ermengarde listened with wide eyes. Some parts were scary, but she liked listening. "You see," Sara said. "Now you will not forget Robespierre." "You are right," Ermengarde said. They talked for a while. Then Ermengarde looked at Sara's thin arms. "Sara, you are thinner than before," she said. "Are you hungry?" Sara looked down. "Yes," she said. "I am very hungry." And Becky is even hungrier than me. Ermengarde gasped. Oh no, she said. I never knew. I did not want you to know, Sara said. It would make me feel like a beggar. You do not look like a beggar, Ermengarde said. Sara smiled a little. One time, a little boy gave me a sixpence, she said. He thought I needed it. She showed the sixpence on a ribbon around her neck. Ermengarde suddenly remembered something. Oh, Sara, she said. I forgot. My aunt sent me a big box today. It is full of good food. Cake, meat pies, jam tarts, oranges, and chocolate. I did not eat any of it. We can eat it now. Sara almost fell over. Do you really have that? She asked. Yes. Ermengarde said. I will go get it. No one will see me. She ran to the door. She listened. Then she looked back at Sara. The house is quiet, she said. Everyone is asleep. I will creep to my room and bring the food here. They held each other's hands. A light of joy came into Sara's eyes. Ermi, Sara said. Let's pretend. Let's pretend it is a party. And should we invite the prisoner from the next cell? Yes. Yes. Let's knock on the wall now. The jailer will not hear us. Sara went to the wall. She could hear Becky crying softly on the other side. She knocked 4 times. This means, come to me through the secret passage under the wall, she explained. I have something to tell you. 5 quick knocks answered her. She is coming, Sara said. A moment later, the attic door opened. Becky appeared. Her eyes were red and her cap was slipping off. When she saw Ermengarde, she quickly rubbed her face with her apron. Don't worry about me, Becky. Ermengarde said kindly. Miss Ermengarde asked you to come in, Sara said. She is bringing a box of good food for us. Becky's cap almost fell off. She looked very excited. To eat, miss? She asked. Real food. Yes, Sara said. And we will pretend it is a party. And you can eat as much as you want. Ermengarde added. I'll go get it now. She was in such a hurry that she ran out of the attic without noticing that her red shawl had fallen on the floor. For a moment, no one saw it. Becky was too surprised by the good news. Oh, miss, she gasped. I know you asked her to let me come. It makes me want to cry. She stood beside Sara and looked at her with admiration. Sara's eyes began to shine with happiness. She felt like magic had changed everything. The cold night outside, the wet and muddy streets, and the sad memory of the hungry beggar girl, suddenly, all of it seemed far away. She took a deep breath. Something always happens, she said. Just when things feel the worst, something always changes. It's like magic. If I could remember that, I would not feel so sad. The very worst never really comes. She gave Becky a gentle shake. No. You must not cry, she said. We need to hurry and set the table. Set the table, miss. Becky looked around the empty attic. With what? Sara looked around too. There is not much here, she said with a little laugh. Then she saw something on the floor. It was Ermengarde's red shawl. She picked it up. Here is the shawl, she said. She won't mind if we use it. It will make a lovely red tablecloth. They pulled the small old table forward and spread the shawl over it. The red color made the room feel warmer right away. A red rug would look nice on the floor, Sara said. Let's pretend we have one. She looked at the bare wooden floor and smiled. It is already here, she said. She stepped onto the rug and moved her foot as if she were feeling soft fabric under it. Yes, miss, Becky said, watching her seriously. What next? Sara said. She closed her eyes and put her hands over them. If I think and wait, the magic will tell me. Becky had seen her do this before. She knew that after a few seconds, Sara would open her eyes and look excited. And she did. There. Sara cried. I know now. I must look inside the old trunk I had when I was a princess. She ran to the corner and opened the trunk. There was nothing valuable inside, only things left behind. But Sara always believed magic would help her find something useful. In one corner, she found a small package. It was just a bundle of white handkerchiefs. But Sara picked them up with joy and ran to the table. She carefully laid them on the red shawl, shaping them so they looked beautiful. These are golden plates, she said. And these are beautiful napkins. Nuns in Spain made them. Did they, miss? Becky whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. You must pretend, Sara said. If you pretend hard enough, you will see them. Yes, miss, Becky said. She tried her best to imagine it. Sara suddenly turned and saw Becky standing by the table. She looked strange. Her eyes were closed and her face was twisted, as if she was lifting something heavy. What are you doing, Becky? Sara asked. Becky opened her eyes and looked embarrassed. I was pretending, miss, she said. I was trying to see it like you do. I almost did. She smiled. But it takes a lot of strength. Maybe it does if you're not used to it, Sara said kindly. But it gets easier. Don't try too hard at first. Just listen to me. She found an old summer hat in the trunk. A small wreath of flowers was on it. She took it off. These are garlands for the feast, she said. They fill the air with perfume. She looked around again. There's a mug on the washstand, Becky. And bring the soap dish too. It will be our centerpiece. Becky handed them to her. What are they now, miss? Becky asked. They look like just a mug and a dish, but I know they are not. The mug is a carven flagon, Sara said, arranging the flowers around it. And the dish, she placed flowers inside it, is made of purest alabaster, encrusted with gems. She touched the objects gently, smiling as if she were in a dream. My, isn't it beautiful? Becky whispered. If we only had something for bonbon dishes, Sara murmured. Then she suddenly remembered something and ran to the trunk again. She found some red and white tissue paper wrapped around a bundle of wool. She quickly shaped the paper into little bowls. Now the table was set. To anyone else, it was just an old table with a red shawl, handkerchiefs, and bits of paper. But to Sara, it was a grand feast. And Becky, watching Sara, could almost see it too. She looked around the attic and asked, Miss, is this still the Bastille, or has it turned into something else? Oh, yes, Sara said. It has changed. Now it is a banquet hall. Becky's mouth fell open. A banquet hall, she whispered. Yes, Sara said. A great hall where feasts are held. It has a high ceiling, a minstrel's gallery, and a huge fireplace with a bright fire. There are candles shining everywhere. My goodness, miss, Becky said. Just then, the door opened. Ermengarde came in, carrying a large basket. She gasped when she saw the table. Oh, Sara, she cried. You are the cleverest girl I have ever seen. Isn't it nice? Sara said. I asked my magic, and it told me to look in the trunk. Wait until she tells you what everything is, Becky said excitedly. Sara explained the golden plates, the decorated napkins, and the grand hall. Ermengarde and Becky listened, enchanted. As they took the food out of the basket, cakes, fruit, bonbons, and red currant wine, the feast became even more real. "It feels like a real party," Ermengarde said. "It is like a queen's table," Becky whispered. Ermengarde had an idea. "Sara, pretend you are a princess. This is your royal feast." "You should be the princess," Sara said. "Oh no. I don't know how," Ermengarde said. "You do it." Sara smiled. "Very well," she said. But before the party could begin, they heard footsteps on the stairs. They all froze. "It's Miss Minchin," Becky whispered. Sara's face went pale. Miss Minchin opened the door with a bang. Their feast was over. Chapter 16. The Visitor. Imagine what the rest of the evening was like. Sara and Becky sat close to the fire, which burned brightly in the small fireplace. The flames danced and made the whole room feel warm. They uncovered the dishes and found hot, rich soup, which was enough for a whole meal. There were also sandwiches, toast, and muffins, plenty of food for both of them. Becky used the mug from the washstand as a teacup. The tea was so delicious that they did not need to pretend it was something special. They were warm, full, and happy. Sara, who always imagined wonderful things, gave herself completely to the joy of the moment. She had spent so much time pretending that she could almost believe that any magical thing was real. "I don't know who did this," she said. "But someone did. And here we are, sitting by their fire. And it is real. Whoever they are, wherever they are, I have a friend, Becky. Someone is my friend." As they sat before the fire, eating the delicious food, they felt a kind of wonder. They looked at each other, almost as if they were unsure whether it was really happening. "Do you think," Becky whispered once, "do you think it could all disappear, miss? Shouldn't we eat fast?" She quickly took a big bite of her sandwich, just in case it was all a dream. "No, it won't disappear," Sara said. "I am eating this muffin, and I can taste it. In dreams, you only think you are eating, but you never really do. Also, I keep pinching myself, and I even touched a hot coal just now, on purpose." They felt so warm and full that they became sleepy. It was a wonderful kind of tiredness, the kind that comes after eating a good meal and sitting in a warm place. Sara turned to look at her transformed bed. There were even enough blankets to share with Becky. That night, Becky's small bed in the next attic felt softer and warmer than ever before. As Becky left the room, she stopped at the door and looked around one last time. Her eyes were full of wonder. "If it's gone in the morning, miss," she said, "at least it was here tonight. And I'll never forget it." She looked at each thing carefully, as if she wanted to remember every detail. The fire was there, she said, pointing. The table was in front of it. The lamp was on it, and the light was soft and red. Your bed had a satin cover. There was a warm rug on the floor, and everything looked beautiful. Anne, she placed a hand on her stomach and smiled. There was soup and sandwiches and muffins. There really was. With that, she left the room. The next morning, something strange happened. Through the mysterious way that secrets travel in schools and among servants, everyone quickly learned what had happened. They knew Sara Crewe was in terrible trouble, that Ermengarde was being punished, and that Becky would have been sent away before breakfast if Miss Minchin had been able to find another maid quickly. The servants whispered to each other. They knew Becky was only allowed to stay because Miss Minchin could not easily find another girl who would work so hard for so little money. In the classroom, the older girls also talked. "Miss Minchin is keeping Sara because she is growing fast and learning a lot," said Jessie to Lavinia. Soon, she will be made to teach classes for free. That's why Miss Minchin won't send her away. It was mean of you to tell on her, Lavinia, Jessie added. How did you find out? I tricked Lottie into telling me, Lavinia said. She is such a baby. She didn't even know she was giving away a secret. Jessie frowned. Still, it was mean. I only told Miss Minchin because it was my duty, Lavinia said in a proud voice. Sara was being dishonest. And it's silly that she acts so grand in her old, torn clothes. What were they doing when Miss Minchin found them? Pretending something foolish, Lavinia said. Ermengarde brought food for Sara and Becky. She never invites us to share things. Not that I care, but it's common of her to share with a servant girl in an attic. I'm surprised Miss Minchin didn't throw Sara out, even if she does want her to be a teacher. Jessie looked a little worried. If she was thrown out, where would she go? How should I know? Lavinia snapped. I just wonder how she will look when she comes to the classroom today. She had no dinner yesterday, and she won't get any food today. Jessie shook her head. That's awful, she said. They have no right to starve her. That morning, when Sara went into the kitchen, the cook and housemaids gave her sharp looks. But she hurried past them. She had overslept a little. Becky had also woken up late, so neither of them had seen each other before coming downstairs. Sara entered the scullery, where Becky was scrubbing a kettle. Becky was humming a little song, and when she looked up, her face was shining with happiness. It was still there when I woke up, miss. Becky whispered excitedly. The blanket, it was as real as it was last night. So was mine, Sara said. Everything is still there. And I ate some of the cold food while I was dressing. Oh, heavens! Becky gasped. She bent over her kettle just in time as the cook entered the kitchen. Miss Minchin expected to see Sara looking weak and sad when she came into the classroom. After being scolded, given extra work, and left without food, Sara should have looked pale and miserable. But when Miss Minchin saw her, she was shocked. Sara walked in with light steps. Her cheeks were pink, and there was a small smile on her lips. She did not look weak or tired at all. Miss Minchin stared at her in surprise. What was the child made of? She called Sara to her desk at once. You do not look as if you understand that you are in disgrace, she said. Are you completely without shame? The truth was, Sara had slept warmly, eaten well, and woken up in a real fairy tale. No one could look sad after that. Her eyes shone with happiness when she answered, politely as always. I beg your pardon, Miss Minchin. I know I am in disgrace. Then do not forget it, Miss Minchin said coldly. And do not look as if you have received a fortune. It is rude. Also, remember that you will have no food today. Yes, Miss Minchin, Sara said. But as she turned away, her heart was full of joy. If the magic had not come just in time, she thought, how terrible yesterday would have been. Lavinia whispered, she can't be very hungry. Look at her. Maybe she is pretending she had a big breakfast. She laughed spitefully. Jessie watched Sara carefully. She is different from other people, she said. Sometimes I feel afraid of her. Ridiculous. Lavinia said. All day, Sara's eyes sparkled, and there was colour in her cheeks. The servants whispered about her. Miss Amelia, Miss Minchin's sister, kept looking at her with confusion. Sara had decided one thing. She must keep the magic a secret. If Miss Minchin came to the attic, she would discover everything. But perhaps the magic would hide itself. Whatever happens, Sara thought, somewhere in the world, a kind person is my friend. Even if I never find out who they are, I will never feel as lonely as before. The magic was good to me. Sara stood up and knocked on the wall for Becky. Becky quickly came in. When she saw the room, she almost fell down in shock. For a few seconds, she could not breathe. "Oh, miss," she gasped. "Oh, miss." "You see," Sara said with a smile. That night, Becky sat on a cushion in front of the fire. She even had her own cup and saucer. When Sara went to bed, she found that she had a thick new mattress and large, soft pillows. Her old mattress and pillow had been moved to Becky's bed. Now Becky had warm, comfortable bedding, too. "Where does it all come from?" Becky asked. "Who does it, miss?" "Let's not even ask," Sara said. "If I didn't want to say thank you, I would rather not know. It makes it more magical." From that night, life became more wonderful every day. The fairy tale continued. Almost every night, something new appeared in the attic. Each time Sara opened the door, she found a new comfort or decoration. The walls were soon covered with pictures and colourful cloths. Strange but beautiful furniture appeared, a bookshelf was put up and filled with books, and little by little, the attic turned into a lovely room. Each morning, Sara found the remains of her supper still on the table. But when she came back in the evening, everything had been cleaned and a new meal was waiting for her. Miss Minchin was as cruel as ever. Miss Amelia was just as bad-tempered. The servants were rude, and Lavinia sneered at Sara's old clothes. The other girls stared at her as if she was strange. But none of this mattered. Sara was living in a magical story. It was more wonderful than anything she had ever imagined. Sometimes, when Miss Minchin scolded her, Sara almost smiled. If you only knew, she thought. If you only knew. Her happiness made her stronger. Even on cold and rainy days, when she was sent on errands and came home wet and hungry, she knew that soon she would be warm and well-fed. Every day, as she worked, she thought about what she would find in the attic that night. Soon, she did not look so thin. Her cheeks became pink, and her eyes no longer looked too big for her face. "Sara Crewe looks very well," Miss Minchin said one day. She did not sound pleased. "Yes," Miss Amelia agreed. "She looks much healthier. She used to look like a hungry little crow." "That is nonsense," Miss Minchin snapped. "She always had plenty to eat." "Of course," Miss Amelia said quickly, afraid she had said something wrong. Miss Minchin frowned. "It is very strange," she said. "Most children would have been broken by such a change in their life. But Sara, she still looks like a princess." Miss Amelia remembered something. "Do you remember what she said in the schoolroom? About what you would do if she really was a princess?" "Don't talk nonsense," Miss Minchin said sharply. But she did remember. Even Becky was beginning to look healthier. She could not help it. She was part of the secret fairy tale, too. She had 2 mattresses, 2 pillows, warm blankets, and a hot meal every night. She even had a seat by the fire. The dark, cold attic had become warm and bright. Sometimes, Sara read books aloud. Sometimes, she studied her lessons. Other times, she simply sat by the fire and thought about who her secret friend might be. She wished she could thank them. One day, something even more wonderful happened. A man came to the door and left several parcels. Each one was addressed in large letters, to the little girl in the right-hand attic. Sara herself was sent to open the door and take them inside. She placed the parcels on the hall table and was looking at them when Miss Minchin came down the stairs. "Take those to the young lady they belong to," Miss Minchin said sharply. "Don't stand there staring." Sara looked up. "They belong to me," she said quietly. "To you?" Miss Minchin said, surprised. What do you mean? I don't know where they come from, Sara said. But they are addressed to me. I sleep in the right-hand attic. Becky sleeps in the other one. Miss Minchin walked over and stared at the parcels. What is inside them? She demanded. I don't know, Sara answered. Open them. Miss Minchin ordered. Sara obeyed. When the paper was removed, Miss Minchin's face changed. She looked shocked. Inside were beautiful clothes, warm stockings, gloves, shoes, and even a fine coat. There was also a nice hat and an umbrella. Pinned to the coat was a small piece of paper. It said, "To be worn every day. Will be replaced when necessary." Miss Minchin's face turned pale. Could she have made a mistake? Did Sara have a rich and powerful friend? She knew that some rich relatives were very strange. Perhaps Sara had a wealthy uncle who did not want her to live with him, but still wanted to take care of her. If that was true, it could be very dangerous. What if this mysterious person found out how Sara had been treated? Miss Minchin gave Sara a sideways glance. Well, she said, in a voice she had not used since Captain Crewe's death. Someone is very kind to you. Since the clothes have been sent, you may wear them. After you change, you may come to the schoolroom to study. You do not need to go on any errands today. Half an hour later, when Sara walked into the schoolroom, everyone fell silent. My word. Jessie whispered to Lavinia. Look at Princess Sara. Everyone was staring. Even Lavinia's face turned red. Sara had not looked this way since the days when she was truly treated like a princess. She wore a warm, beautiful dress. Her shoes were fine and neat, and her hair was tied back with a ribbon. Maybe someone left her a fortune, Jessie whispered. I always thought something strange would happen to her. She is so unusual. Maybe her diamond mines came back, Lavinia said bitterly. Don't stare at her. She will think she is special. Sara, Miss Minchin called. Come and sit here. As the whole schoolroom whispered and watched, Sara quietly walked to her old seat. She bent her head over her books, just as she had always done. That night, after Sara and Becky ate their supper, Sara sat by the fire and stared into the flames. Are you making up a story, miss? Becky asked softly. Usually, when Sara sat like this, she was imagining a new tale. But this time, she shook her head. No, she said. I am wondering what I should do. Becky looked at her with wide eyes. I keep thinking about my friend, Sara explained. If they want to stay a secret, it would be rude to try and find them. But I want them to know how thankful I am. Kind people like to know when they make others happy. I wish. She suddenly stopped. Her eyes had fallen on something in the corner of the room. It was a small writing case with paper, envelopes, pens, and ink. Oh, she cried. Why didn't I think of that before? She hurried over, brought the case back to the fire, and sat down. I can write a letter, she said happily. I won't ask any questions. I'll just say thank you. I am sure they won't mind. She took out a piece of paper and wrote. I hope this is not rude. I know you want to keep yourself a secret. I do not want to find out who you are. I only want to say thank you. You have been so kind. You have made my life like a fairy tale. Becky and I are so happy. We used to be lonely, cold, and hungry. But now, oh, just think what you have done for us. Please let me say these words. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The little girl in the attic. She left the note on the table. The next evening, it was gone. Her secret friend had taken it. And Sara was happier than ever. Chapter 17. It is the child. The next afternoon, 3 children from the large family were sitting in the Indian gentleman's library. They were trying to make him feel better. They were allowed to visit because he had invited them. For a long time, he had been waiting for some important news. That day, he was feeling especially anxious. He was waiting for Mr. Carmichael to return from Moscow. Mr. Carmichael had been in Moscow for many weeks. At first, he could not find the family he was looking for. When he finally found their house, he was told that they were away on a journey. He had waited in Moscow until they returned. Now, Mr. Carrisford, the Indian gentleman, sat in his chair, looking tired. Janet sat on the floor beside him. She was his favorite. Nora sat on a footstool, and Donald was playing on the tiger-skin rug. He was pretending to ride the tiger's head like a horse. "Don't be so loud, Donald," Janet said. "We are here to cheer up Mr. Carrisford, but we don't have to shout." She turned to the Indian gentleman. "Is it too noisy?" He smiled and patted her shoulder. "No, it is not too noisy," he said. "It helps me stop thinking too much." "I'll be quiet," Donald said loudly. "We'll all be as quiet as mice." "Mice don't make that much noise," said Janet. "A whole group of mice might," Donald said cheerfully. "Maybe 1,000 mice." "I don't think even 50,000 mice would be this loud," Janet said seriously. "We have to be as quiet as one mouse." Mr. Carrisford laughed and patted her shoulder again. "Papa will be home soon," Janet said. "Can we talk about the lost little girl?" "I don't think I could talk about anything else right now," the Indian gentleman said. He looked tired. "We like her so much," Nora said. "We call her the little UN fairy princess." "Why?" Mr. Carrisford asked. The children's stories always made him feel better. Janet answered, "Because she is not really a fairy, but when she is found, she will be as rich as a princess in a fairy tale." "Is it true," Nora asked, "that her father gave all his money to a friend, who invested it in diamond mines? But then the friend thought he lost everything and ran away because he felt like a thief." "But he wasn't really a thief," Janet said quickly. Mr. Carrisford suddenly held her hand. "No, he wasn't," he said. "I feel sorry for the friend," Janet said. "I can't help it. He didn't mean to do anything wrong. It must have broken his heart." "You are a very kind girl, Janet," Mr. Carrisford said. He held her hand tightly. "Did you tell Mr. Carrisford," Donald suddenly shouted, "about the little girl who isn't a beggar? She has nice new clothes now. Maybe someone found her. There's a cab." Janet cried. It stopped in front of the house. "It's Papa." All 3 children ran to the window. "Yes, it's Papa," Donald said. "But he's alone. There's no little girl with him." At once, they all ran out of the room to greet their father. They were heard laughing and clapping as they hugged him. Mr. Carrisford tried to stand up, but sank back into his chair. "It's no use," he said. "I am so weak." Then Mr. Carmichael's voice came from the hallway. "No, children," he said. "You can see me later. First, I must talk to Mr. Carrisford. Go play with Ram Das." The door opened and Mr. Carmichael entered. He looked strong and healthy, but there was sadness in his eyes. Mr. Carrisford looked at him with desperate hope. "What news?" he asked quickly. "The child that the Russian family adopted." Mr. Carmichael shook his head. "She is not the child we are looking for," he said. "She is much younger than Captain Crewe's daughter. Her name is Emily Carew. I spoke to her and the family. They gave me all the details." Mr. Carrisford looked exhausted. His hand dropped from Mr. Carmichael's. Then we must start all over again, he said. Please sit down. Mr. Carmichael Saturday. He had grown fond of the unhappy man. He could not imagine what it must feel like to be so alone. His own life was full of happiness and love. Come, come, he said kindly. We will find her. We must start right away, Mr. Carrisford said impatiently. Do you have any new ideas? Mr. Carmichael stood up and walked around the room, thinking. Perhaps, he said. An idea came to me on the train from Dover. What is it? Mr. Carrisford asked eagerly. If she is alive, she is somewhere. Yes, she is somewhere, Mr. Carmichael agreed. We searched the schools in Paris. Let's forget Paris and start searching London instead. There are many schools in London, Mr. Carrisford said. Then he suddenly remembered something. There is a school next door. Then let's start there, Mr. Carmichael said. We cannot start any closer than next door. No, Mr. Carrisford said. There is a girl there who interests me, but she is not a pupil. She is a small, dark little thing, very different from Captain Crewe's child. Just then, Ram Das entered the room. He bowed respectfully, but there was excitement in his eyes. Sahib, he said, the child has come, the child you pitied. She has brought back the monkey. He escaped again and ran to her attic. I thought you might want to see her. Who is she? Mr. Carmichael asked. God knows, Mr. Carrisford said. She is just a poor little servant at the school. He turned to Ram Das. Yes, bring her in, he said. Then he turned back to Mr. Carmichael. While you were away, I was desperate, he explained. The days were so long and dark. Ram Das told me about this child's suffering. We decided to help her in secret. It was a foolish plan, but it gave me something to think about. Then Sara entered the room. She was carrying the monkey, who clung to her. She looked excited but calm. Your monkey ran away again, she said gently. He came to my window last night, and I took him in. It was too cold for him outside. The Indian gentleman looked at her with great interest. That was very kind of you, he said. Sara glanced at Ram Das. Shall I give him to the Lascar? She asked. How do you know he is a Lascar? Mr. Carrisford asked. Sara smiled. Oh, I know Lascars. I was born in India. Mr. Carrisford suddenly sat up straight. You were born in India? He asked quickly. Come here. Sara stepped forward. He took her hand and she let him. You live next door? He asked. Yes, she said. At Miss Minchin's school. But you are not a pupil. Sara hesitated, then smiled slightly. I don't think I know what I am, she said. What do you mean? I used to be a pupil, but now. You used to be a pupil. What are you now? Sara's small, sad smile returned. I sleep in the attic, she said. I run errands for the cook and teach the little ones. Mr. Carrisford turned pale. Question her, Carmichael, he said weakly. I cannot. Mr. Carmichael spoke kindly. Tell me, child, when did you go to the school? My papa brought me, Sara said. Where is your papa? He died, she said quietly. He lost his money. There was no one to care for me. Mr. Carrisford gasped. Carmichael, it is the child. The child. Sara's eyes widened. What child? She whispered. We have been looking for you for 2 years, Mr. Carmichael said. Sara put a hand to her forehead. And I was at Miss Minchin's all the time, she murmured. Just on the other side of the wall. Chapter 18. I tried not to be. It was kind and gentle Mrs. Carmichael who explained everything to Sara. She was sent for immediately and came across the square to take Sara into her warm arms. She wanted to help her understand everything that had happened. Mr. Carrisford, who was still weak, was almost overwhelmed by the discovery. "I don't want to lose sight of her," he said faintly to Mr. Carmichael, when it was suggested that Sara should go into another room to rest. "I will take care of her," Janet said. "Mamma will come in a few minutes." She took Sara's hand and led her away. "We're so happy we found you," she said. "You don't know how happy we are." Donald stood nearby with his hands in his pockets, looking at Sara with a serious face. "If I had just asked your name when I gave you my sixpence," he said, "you would have told me it was Sara Crewe, and then you would have been found right away." Then Mrs. Carmichael entered the room. She looked very emotional, and suddenly she took Sara in her arms and kissed her. "You look confused, my poor child," she said. "And I don't blame you." Sara could only think of one thing. Was he? She glanced at the closed door of the library. Was he the wicked friend? Mrs. Carmichael's eyes filled with tears as she kissed Sara again. She felt like Sara should be kissed very often, since she had gone so long without love. "He was not wicked, my dear," she said. "He did not really lose your papa's money. He only thought he had lost it. And because he loved your father so much, he became very ill with grief. He nearly died. And long before he began to recover, your poor papa had passed away." "He didn't know where to find me," Sara murmured. "And I was so close all along." Somehow, she could not stop thinking about how near she had been. "He believed you were in a school in France," Mrs. Carmichael explained. "But he kept following the wrong clues. He searched everywhere. When he saw you passing by, looking so sad and poor, he never imagined you were his friend's lost daughter. But he felt sorry for you and wanted to help. So he told Ram Dass to climb into your attic and make you more comfortable." Sara gasped with joy. Her whole face lit up. "Did Ram Dass bring the things?" she cried. "Did he tell Ram Dass to do it? Did he make the dream come true?" "Yes, my dear, yes," Mrs. Carmichael said warmly. "He is kind and good, and he wanted to help you because of little lost Sara Crewe." Just then, the library door opened and Mr. Carmichael appeared. "Mr. Carrisford is feeling better already," he said. "He wants to see you." Sara did not wait. When she entered the room, the Indian gentleman saw that her whole face was glowing with happiness. She stood in front of him with her hands clasped. "You sent the things to me," she said in a joyful, emotional voice. "The beautiful, beautiful things. You sent them." "Yes, my dear child, I did," he said. He was weak from illness and sorrow, but his eyes were filled with kindness. Sara saw in them the same look she remembered in her father's eyes, the look of love, of wanting to protect her. She knelt down beside him, just as she used to kneel by her father. "Then it was you," she whispered. "It was you who were my friend." She dropped her face onto his thin hand and kissed it again and again. Mr. Carmichael turned to his wife. "In 3 weeks, he will be himself again," he said quietly. "Look at his face already." Indeed, Mr. Carrisford did look different. Now that he had found Sara, he had new things to think about. The first thing to do was to deal with Miss Minchin. Sara would not return to the school. Mr. Carrisford was firm about that. She would stay with him, and Mr. Carmichael would go to Miss Minchin to inform her of the change. "I am glad I don't have to go back," Sara said. "She will be very angry. She does not like me." Then, surprisingly, Miss Minchin made it unnecessary for Mr. Carmichael to go to her, because she came herself. She had wanted Sara for something and had discovered something shocking. A housemaid had seen Sara leave through the kitchen door and go next door, entering the Indian gentleman's house. "What does this mean?" Miss Minchin said angrily to her sister. "I don't know," Miss Amelia replied nervously. "Maybe she made friends with him because he lived in India." "It would be just like her," Miss Minchin said. "She must have pushed herself into his house to get his sympathy. She has been there for 2 hours. I will not allow such behavior. I will go and apologize for her rudeness myself." Sara was sitting near Mr. Carrisford, listening as he explained things to her, when Ram Das came in and announced Miss Minchin's arrival. Sara stood up quickly and turned a little pale, but she did not show fear. Miss Minchin entered with a stern and polite manner. "I am sorry to disturb Mr. Carrisford," she said, "but I must explain something. I am Miss Minchin, the headmistress of the young ladies' seminary next door." Mr. Carrisford looked at her in silence for a moment. "So you are Miss Minchin," he said. "I am, sir," she replied. "In that case," he said, "you have arrived just in time. My lawyer, Mr. Carmichael, was about to visit you." Miss Minchin looked confused. "Your lawyer," she said. "I don't understand." "I have come because I just found out that one of my pupils, a charity pupil, has intruded into your house. I came to apologize for her behavior." She turned to Sara. "Go home at once," she ordered. "You will be punished severely." But Mr. Carrisford gently pulled Sara closer to him. "She is not going anywhere," he said. Miss Minchin looked shocked. "Not going?" "No," Mr. Carrisford said. "She is not going home, if you call that place her home. From now on, she will live with me." Miss Minchin gasped. "With YOU?" she cried. "What does this mean?" Mr. Carmichael stepped forward. "Miss Minchin," he said calmly, "Mr. Carrisford was Captain Crewe's business partner. The fortune that Captain Crewe thought he lost has been found, and it now belongs to Sara." "The fortune?" Miss Minchin whispered. She turned pale. "Yes," Mr. Carmichael said. "In fact, the diamond mines have become even more valuable. Sara is now a very rich heiress." Miss Minchin felt as if the world was falling apart. She tried desperately to change the situation. "But she was under my care," she protested. "I took care of her. Without me, she would have starved in the streets." Mr. Carrisford's face darkened. "She would have been more comfortable starving in the streets than in your attic," he said coldly. Miss Minchin knew she had lost. She turned to Sara. "I suppose," she said bitterly, "that you feel like a princess again." Sara flushed slightly. "I tried not to be anything else," she said softly. "Even when I was cold and hungry, I tried not to be." Miss Minchin left the house in defeat. That night, Ermengarde arrived at the schoolroom with a letter from Sara. "Where is she?" the other girls shouted. "Next door," Ermengarde said. "With the Indian gentleman." "What?" "There really were diamond mines," Ermengarde said firmly. "And they belonged to Sara all along." The entire school erupted into chaos. But in the attic, Becky found one last surprise. Ram Das had left one final warm meal for her, with a letter from Sara. "She did not want you to go to bed unhappy," Ram Das said gently. "Tomorrow, you will join her. You are to be her personal maid." And Becky, with tears in her eyes, whispered, "Oh, miss, it's like a fairy tale." Chapter 19. Anne. Never had the nursery of the large family been so full of joy. Never had they imagined such excitement as knowing the little girl who was not a beggar. Sara's adventures and hardships made her the most fascinating friend they had ever known. Everyone wanted to hear her stories again and again. Sitting in their warm, comfortable nursery, it was thrilling to hear how cold an attic could be. The attic itself became a kind of magical place in their minds, especially when they heard about Melchizedek, the sparrows, and the wonderful things Sara could see from the skylight. But their favorite story was the one about the banquet, the dream that came true. The day after Sara had been found, several members of the large family came to have tea with her. As they sat around the warm fire, curled up on the rug, Sara told them the story in her own way. The Indian gentleman sat nearby, listening and watching her. When she finished, she looked up at him and placed her hand on his knee. "That is my part," she said. "Now won't you tell your part, Uncle Tom?" He had asked her to call him that always. "I don't know your part yet, and it must be beautiful." So Mr. Carrisford told them his side of the story. He spoke about how, when he sat alone, sick and unhappy, Ram Das tried to distract him by describing the people passing by. He noticed that one little girl passed by more often than the others. At first, he was interested in her simply because he had been thinking about another lost little girl. Then Ram Das had told him about his visit to the attic while chasing the monkey. He described how dark and cold it was and how Sara did not look like a servant, even though she was treated like one. Little by little, Ram Das had discovered the truth about her life. He had realized how easy it was to cross the roof to her skylight. That had been the beginning of everything. "Sahib," Ram Das had said one day, "I could cross the roof and light a fire for the child while she is out on an errand. When she returns, cold and tired, she will think a magician has done it." The idea had been so magical that Mr. Carrisford had actually smiled. Ram Das had been overjoyed and had explained how easily they could do many other things for her. Planning these small surprises gave Mr. Carrisford something to look forward to each day. On the night of the ruined banquet, Ram Das had been watching from the skylight, waiting for Sara to fall asleep. As soon as he was sure she was deeply asleep, he and his helper had crept into the attic and placed the gifts inside. Each time Sara had stirred in her sleep, Ram Das had hidden in the shadows and waited. The large family listened with wide eyes, asking 1,000 excited questions. "I am so glad," Sara said at last. "I am so glad it was you who were my friend." There had never been such friends as Sara and Mr. Carrisford. They seemed to understand each other in a special way. The Indian gentleman had never had a companion quite like her. Within a month, just as Mr. Carmichael had predicted, he was a new man. He was happier, stronger, and for the first time in years, he enjoyed his wealth. He loved planning surprises for Sara. They joked that he was a magician, always finding new ways to delight her. One day, she found beautiful flowers growing in her room. Another time, she discovered little gifts hidden under her pillows. One evening, as they sat together, they heard a soft scratching at the door. Sara got up to see what it was. When she opened the door, she gasped. A great Russian boarhound stood there, wearing a splendid gold and silver collar. On the collar was an inscription, "I am Boris. I serve the Princess Sara." The Indian gentleman laughed with delight. He loved remembering the little princess in rags and tatters. The afternoons spent with the large family, Ermengarde and Lottie, were always lively and joyful. But the quiet evenings when Sara and Mr. Carrisford sat together, reading or talking, had their own special magic. One evening, Mr. Carrisford looked up from his book and noticed that Sara had been silent for a long time. She was staring into the fire. "What are you supposing, Sara?" he asked. Sara looked up, a slight flush on her cheeks. "I was remembering a hungry day," she said. "But there were many hungry days," he said gently. "Which one do you mean?" "The day the dream came true," she answered. Then she told him the story of the bun shop, the day she found fourpence in the muddy street, the warm buns, and the starving girl. She told it simply, in just a few words. But Mr. Carrisford had to look down at the carpet and cover his eyes with his hand. "And I was supposing something," Sara said when she finished. "What was it?" he asked in a quiet voice. "I was wondering," she said hesitantly. "You say I have so much money. Could I go to the bun woman and ask her to give food to hungry children, especially on those dreadful days? If she agrees, she could send the bills to me." "You shall do it tomorrow morning," Mr. Carrisford said. Sara smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. "I know what it is to be hungry, and it is very hard when you can't even pretend it away." "Yes, my dear," Mr. Carrisford said. "Try to forget it now. Come and sit on this footstool near my knee, and remember that you are a princess." "Yes," Sara said, smiling again. "And I can give bread and buns to the people." She sat beside him, and he stroked her dark hair. The next morning, Miss Minchin looked out of her window and saw a sight she did not enjoy. The Indian gentleman's carriage stopped in front of his house. He stepped out, followed by a little figure wrapped in rich furs. Miss Minchin recognized the figure immediately. Behind Sara, another familiar figure appeared, Becky. As Sara's personal maid, Becky always carried her belongings when she went out. Miss Minchin was furious. Becky already looked healthier and happier than ever before. A little later, the carriage stopped in front of the baker's shop. Sara and Mr. Carrisford stepped out just as the bun woman was placing warm, fresh buns in the window. When the woman saw Sara, she stared at her. Then her face brightened. "I remember you, miss," she said. "And yet—" "Yes," Sara said. "Once you gave me 6 buns for 4pence, and you gave 5 of them to a beggar child," the woman interrupted. "I've always remembered that. I couldn't understand it at first." She turned to Mr. Carrisford. "Excuse me, sir, but I've never seen a young lady notice a hungry child like that before. I've thought about it many times." Sara smiled. "I am much better now," she said. "And I have come to ask you something." "What can I do for you, miss?" the woman asked cheerfully. Then Sara explained her plan. When she finished, the woman looked amazed. "Why, bless me," she said. "I'd be happy to do it. I've given away more bread since that day just thinking about you and how hungry you looked. But you gave away your buns as if you were a princess." Mr. Carrisford smiled at that. Sara remembered how she had once told herself the same thing. "She was even hungrier than I was," she said. "She was starving," the woman agreed. "And she's told me about it since." Sara's eyes widened. "You've seen her?" she asked. "You know where she is?" "Yes," the woman said, smiling. "She's in the back room now. She's been living with me for a month. She helps in the shop and the kitchen." A moment later, the beggar girl appeared. She was clean, neatly dressed, and no longer starving. Sara smiled. "I'm so glad," she said. "And I have an idea. Maybe you could be the one to give buns to the children, since you know what it is like to be hungry." The girl nodded. "Yes, miss," she said. And as Sara left the shop, she felt that she had found a new friend